Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Shanni Show, to another amazing interview episode. This one was so good. It is with the incredible Maude Garrett. She's a TV host, personality, gamer, nerd culture fanatic, Dungeons and Dragons queen or knight. Guys, I do not know all the terms. I really don't. It's my complete apologies. Anyways, she really is incredible. And she also has this amazing geek culture sort of media company called Geek Bomb. We talk about that. You guys would absolutely adore it. I'm going to give you guys all of the handles inside of the podcast episode descriptions. But just so you know, you can follow Maude at Maude Garrett, and that's 2 R's and 2 T's. On all social media platforms. I think she's most active on Instagram as far as I'm concerned, and her Insta is great. She always posts little reels and clips of some of the junket interviews she's done with, the highest of high-level celebrities. Like, we're talking about Brad Pitt, Quentin Tarantino, Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, literally anyone that you can think of, she is absolutely interviewed. And so her stuff is just amazing. Definitely recommend checking her out. And then also her page for Geek Bomb. Geek Bomb is just Geek Bomb on all social media platforms. They also have a Twitch channel where they stream and they do some cool content on there. And they're very active on Instagram as well. And they also have a Patreon. So you can follow them on Patreon, subscribe to some of their premium content. But this episode was really awesome. We talked about so many different things. First of all, stuff that she's done, but also just life philosophy. We really spoke a lot about self-growth and moments in our life that were incredibly influential in essentially who we are today. It was a great conversation. I was so happy to have her on. She's one of those people that I spotted from a mile away when I first met her as truly authentic, genuine, real, down to earth, and full of integrity. And I love that in people. And, she has so many different varied interests and hobbies and passions. And I also love that in people. So it was a great episode. Hope you guys enjoy. Before we jump into that, as usual, I'm going to remind you guys to please follow, subscribe to the podcast on all social media platforms, at Shanni Show, and then at Shanni Suissa for my personal accounts. We're also on YouTube, so you can watch the full video versions of this show on YouTube. And yeah, just support us. Support us. We're growing, we're new, we're small, we're on our way. And any sort of support means the absolute world to us. So we really appreciate it. And let's get into the episode. Wait, so I asked Nicole this question. I'm going to ask it to you. What's it like being on the other side of the interview?
Oh, a little bit nerve-wracking. I like that seat. I like the power station. But I don't know. Depends if I also like to express things if I have something important to say as well. So it's if we're on a topic that I'm really passionate about, I think the hardest part being the interviewer is that you have to sit back and let them talk. And I had a really bad problem of wanting to interject and share. And I think that's why podcasting is really great, because it's more of a discussion. Yeah,
more of a two-way street. So I always think that, that's why I like doing solo episodes too, because there's times where I have so many thoughts, but you don't want to overpower the interview because you're trying to get from your guest the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I usually get my interviews 5 minutes. I get 5 minutes and that's it.
Okay, what is a junket? I've been meaning to ask you this. What is that term? I keep hearing it all over the place.
So a junket's a particular type of interview. Usually it's a press tour for a movie. And so the junket is when you sit down and you have 5 to 10 minutes with the talent. And then you are you either have individual talent or they'll be paired and it's the director. So per movie, you might get one interview, you might get up to 5 or 6 different interviews depending on how many talent they have available. But that is what's called the junket circuit. So it's usually all the outlets that are trying to get that interview to help promote the movie.
Okay, cool. Your junket interviews are incredible.
Thank you. I miss them. I haven't done them for a while.
I honestly think you might be one of the best that I've seen. I'm not even kidding. They're so good. And you know what? I'm not the only one who thinks that, because I've looked through some of the comments online underneath some of these videos, and people have such high praise for you, and rightfully so. Your chemistry with Keanu Reeves.
Oh, I love Keanu.
I just hope we have that kind of chemistry.
Oh my God, he's so great. I've interviewed him about 5 or 6 times over the years.
Crazy.
He's a freaking unicorn, that man. Nicest guy on the planet. So sweet, so genuine, so wonderful. I feel like what's super impressive about some celebrities, if they reach A-list status, by right, in a way, they can be an asshole. Like, because they've kind of earned that. It's that kind of fame, you know, it can turn people into assholes. So when you are an A-list and you are not an asshole, it is so almost like refreshing and wonderful, and they're a unicorn.
Yeah.
Because the amount of stories and situations that I've had where the A-list, you know what, it's not even that. The A-listers are usually pretty good. It's the B and the D listers.
The ones that are, like, I feel like they have that complex, right? It's because they're B or D.
You are someone that will never work again. If this is it, like if this is it for you, like you are done.
Yeah. If you don't get more offers after this, then you're screwed.
You have not earned the right to be an asshole. And if you're an asshole now.
Imagine what you're going to be if you start booking real gigs. Oh, yeah.
But I have noticed in Australia, it's so small. The entertainment world is so small. It's why I moved to LA.
You guys are invading Hollywood.
It's because nothing's happening back home.
Everybody has an accent. It's so funny. This comedian has a skit about this, how the Australians are the real immigrants stealing our jobs. Look at Hollywood. Everybody that has an American accent on TV, then you watch their interviews after, and they're all fucking Australian.
Or British.
Or British.
Or Irish or Scottish.
Yeah, or just something of that nature.
The monarchy is taking over. We are doing it for our queen. What?
Oh, my God.
She's just on the coins for us.
But you've interviewed so many people. So Keanu, what's it like working with him? What is he like in person?
The best.
Is it hard to extract goodies from them? Are they sort of quieter people? You know what I mean? What's that process like?
I'm just trying to think. Usually with our interviews, we've had a really genuine, fun moment, whether it's me poking myself in the eye.
Saw that
yeah.
That was great.
That was totally accidental as well. Or if it's me bombarding him with compliments to the point where he's like literally doing the Matrix trying to avoid them. It depends on their mood. There's like so many variables, and sometimes there's only so much you can do as an interviewer to put them in a good mood, to put them in a good place, to ask them an interesting question that they haven't heard 50 million times already, and to build that instant rapport. But at the same time, like the things that are out of our hands are, have they had a awful person interview them who pushed a boundary?
Yeah.
And am I receiving sort of like the aftermath of that? Have they got a cold? Are they just absolutely sick of it? You know, there's so many things that even if you're doing your absolute best, it's always, you know, if they don't meet you with that, or if their mood affects them in a way, like that's your 5 minutes done. And I've called out celebrities for not respecting my 5 minutes because for me, they are my only interview. I only get that 5 minutes with them.
Right.
For them, I'm one of 175 people in 48 hours.
Wow.
So that 5 minutes doesn't really have much weight or worth for them, but it's all I have. So one thing that celebrities will usually do in an interview, especially if they're paired up, so if two actors are sitting together in it.
Right, they do that a lot, or they'll have,
Yes.
3 or 4. Yeah.
So sometimes they will play this game, and I think one of the late night hosts has almost perpetuated this as well, where they have to drop a word in.
Oh, I thought it was this game, where you like slap someone's knee or something.
Oh, got it.
I've seen those in a few interviews.
No, there's this thing where it's like, all right, for this interview, you have to try and put the word perpendicular in an answer. And so all they're trying to do is swing an answer that doesn't really make sense, that doesn't, pertain to the movie really, as long as they can try to get perpendicular in. And they're like, oh, that was awesome. And I'm here going, I can't use this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my place of employment, and they're going to go, what the hell happened? We can't use any of this. And I'm like, but don't worry, they got perpendicular in the answer. So if I see them do that, I will call them out, and I have before.
Good on you. Good on you.
And I just remind them, guys, usually men, I have 5 minutes and I want a good response. So because you've wasted 2.5 of my minutes on your game, give me 2 great sound bites and we'll call it a day. And they must never get called out, because the way that they kind of sit up and they're like, oh, okay. And then I'll have a great rest of the interview. But there is an actor who, for some reason, decided to lie. I was like, you've just done this film with Michael Keaton. When I just interviewed him, he shared this about you. I didn't do the movie with Michael Keaton.
Wait, what?
but you did because I've seen the movie and I just spoke to him and I'd like to talk about this quote that he's given me.
Wait, he said that he didn't do the movie that you were doing the junket for, that he was obviously in.
Yeah. No. No, I didn't work with him.
Was he delusional or on something?
He was bored. He was being a brat.
Oh,
and so
one of those. He thought it was like a banter kind of thing.
And so, I was kind of like, what is that? And then when he kept going with it, I was like, oh, your breath stinks because you're talking shit right now. And he, thank God he wasn't like, get out. He was just like so blown away by the fact that I'd called him out on whatever this thing was that his eyes like lit up and he was like, yay, let's go, let's chat. And I was just like, but what if I wasn't me and this poor person is sitting here like, so it wasn't in the movie. And then that's it,
But do you think that's why you've gotten ahead and been so successful in this area because you handle people like that?
I think it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, I'm just there to do a job and I don't get sort of overwhelmed by the celebrity aspect.
You don't. You really keep I've never seen you act differently or.
One time.
Who was it for?
A couple of times. A handful of times.
Just a dozen times, give or take.
Listen, I'm not immune. I think the worst time I've ever been starstruck, like overwhelmed, like I couldn't even barely talk to them, was for a red. I'm still like, whew.
Look at you, you're all flustered now.
For a red carpet. It wasn't even a junket. The great thing about junkets is that they have to talk to you. You sit down and you have to have that time.
Oh yeah, red carpet, you're calling out.
They can walk.
Right.
And these people had nothing to do with the movie. I think they had a song on the soundtrack, right? Okay. But what I've learned about the celebrity kind of like fluster is if they are a childhood crush. So if they are someone that was all over your books as a kid and you still remember their birthday.
Posters on your wall. You still remember their birthday. Who is this?
Hanson.
Oh my God.
I could not believe, my eyes are watering. I could not believe that Hanson was on this freaking carpet and they were like touching distance and they all walked up to me and they were like, hi. And I was just like, hi. Whoa. Yeah, what's up? Because like in my mind, 11-year-old Maude was going to marry Zac Efron.
Oh my God, wait, where is this a clip out online? Can I find this somewhere?
I don't know. It was in 2014.
Okay, I'm gonna have to dig for that one.
But my producer is like, pull it together. What is wrong with you? Yeah. What is wrong with you? And I was like, you don't get it. Like I listened to their CD for like 9 months straight. I didn't come up for air. And that was what was really interesting, where it's like little childhood Maude just could not kind of
believe.
Yeah. But I was like, if there's anyone that I could kind of like throw an interview away for, it's probably Hanson.
I mean, it ignited your inner child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
you've sat toe to toe with Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt, Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, Awkwafina. Like I could list so many. It's crazy. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, it's actually quicker to list the ones that I haven't.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, by the way, my intro for you is going to be about like 30 million hours long if I do the whole list. But it's true. Like you've really been toe to toe. So for it to affect you, you know that it ignited something deep inside.
Yeah.
That was like 13-year-old, 15-year-old Maude going crazy.
11.
11.
I know I'm aging and dating myself right now, but
9-year-old Maude going crazy.
Yeah. I think another moment that I had was, it's such a funny story because I'm freelance and I have been a majority of sort of like my time there.
I was going to ask you that. So when you're doing all of these junkets, who are you working for each time?
Who do you work for? It has completely changed over. So my first junket was in 2007.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was for Nickelodeon.
Cool.
In Australia.
That was, very cool.
So I started there. And then I moved into radio, so it was more junkets.
Okay.
And then I came over here in LA to do a radio show, which was all about red carpets and celebrity. So I worked for them full-time for 2 years, which was great because when you have a full-time job, you are not a threat. It's when you become a freelancer that you are a threat because it's a game of musical chairs where chairs are being pulled out from under you and everyone's frantically just trying to sit on a chair, which in this case is frantically just trying to work for an outlet so they can stay in the junket circuit.
Got it.
So I loved my introduction into doing junkets because I had the full-time job and I wasn't domestic. So there's two different sort of like
where were you doing these?
it was international.
Okay.
So they'll have like days of junkets for the domestic cruise, which are your Entertainment Tonight, all of, and then online, but all within sort of like America only. And then they'll have another sort of junket dedicated 2 days for international.
That's cool.
Yeah. So being international, I wasn't a threat either.
Yeah. But also I feel like if the celebrities are being presented with a bunch of international junkets, I feel like they're going to be less annoyed than coming to you because it's something different. Whereas if it's all American for 48 hours, it's the same thing over and over kind of, you know, same sort of cultural perspective, same sort of this.
Yeah.
Whereas in the international junket, they're probably a little bit less destroyed and exhausted by the time they come to you almost.
Yes and no. You kind of hit the nail on the head with like the cultural perspective. I think that in some places around the world, there's just a detachment from sort of like what's appropriate and what's not. So true, yeah. I think that sometimes when I'm sitting down, they're like, oh, thank God she's not going to, and I've heard stories about some really inappropriate questions that have just been asked without any sort of like understanding of its inappropriateness.
Are they not approved before, like questions that are...
Sometimes, most often, no. But a publicist is on stand, like is watching the entire thing the whole time. And if anything happens, they will intercept the tape, they'll get it edited out, or they will just call off the interview altogether.
Got it. So you do kind of want to toe the line because you don't want to get your stuff cut out.
Exactly.
Right.
There is such a protocol when it comes to junkets that I was not even, like, you have to learn it. It's never really discussed. Yeah, you have to have a reputation where you're not going to sort of like push boundaries.
And be problematic, yeah.
But at the same time, you need to get an angle or have a moment or go off sort of like the movie a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of like hard to toe that line too. Yeah. But there's this one instance, I was not only working for the full-time radio show, I was also working for a breakfast channel in Australia.
Okay, what's a morning news show kind of thing? Okay, cool.
Very different tones.
Yeah.
So my radio show was like, just have fun, talk about whatever. And the breakfast show was, we need these questions. I have 5 minutes to try to appease two completely different outlets.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So you're working for both of them at the same time?
Yes.
While doing these junkets?
Yes.
Wow, that is very tricky.
And with this one interview, the second time, and one of the only other times I ever got flustered, one outlet said, this is the best interview you've ever done. If you do more of this, big things will come your way. And the other one said, if you do anything like this again, you will never work for us again and we'll fire you.
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay. But that interview was, I was trying to talk to Dave Franco and Zac
Galifianakis? No.
Efron.
Oh, cool.
And they noticed my Triforce tattoo. And I think what their shtick was...
What is Triforce?
This is my tattoo. It's from a video game.
Okay, cool.
The game that made me a gamer.
We're going to get into geeky stuff too.
Okay,
Yeah, we have to.
So I think their whole shtick was they want anyone who sat down, they just bombarded them with compliments. I love your dress. I love your shoes.
It's hilarious.
And then I had nice nails on. Love your nails. I held them up and he goes, well, was that a Triforce tattoo? And I was like, yes. And then Zac Efron's like, from The Legend of Zelda? And I was like, yes. And he's like, Ocarina of Time was the best game ever. And I'm like, that's 100% why I got this tattoo. Yes, it is. Wow. And so like, again, this sort of thing took over where I was like, oh my God, I'm connecting with this person about the thing that's most important to me. But then I got to talk about this film. But Zac Efron's talking to me about freaking Zelda.
Did you talk about Zelda a bit? I mean, you had to.
Yes. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, but I need to pull it back on track. But I was a little bit more flustered than that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because that's also your inner child igniting, right? But
yes.
It's just from a different perspective. It's not necessarily Zac. It's the game. It's connecting with him about this.
Connecting.
Yeah.
Connecting is the most important thing.
God, I love that. I love watching, there was, what was the Awkwafina, Sandra Bullock, and was it Cate Blanchett?
Yes.
That one
For
was
Ocean's 8.
Hilarious because they it was just
over.
chaos.
Yes.
It was just pure. What was that like live? What was it like talking to them live?
I actually think that when there's two or more, it's an easier interview to have because I will just ask a question and then sit back and then look at the person I want to answer. So if one answers, then I don't say anything. I just look to the next person.
Oh, great.
And then they answer. And a lot of the time that will then force them to banter with each other. And because they know each other far better than they know me, that chemistry, that moment, that's all going to be far superior. So I let them do the whole thing for me.
I love that. That's such a great strategy.
Yes.
I mean, really, it's just in the head nod. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fantastic.
It took me so long to realize that I barely even asked questions. I would just say a statement and then lean back.
Yeah. The Rock and who was the other guy?
Kevin Hart.
Yeah, Kevin Hart. What great interviews. Those were hilarious. They were great together.
They're fantastic. They have this thing where they pretend to hate each other. And so all they were doing was just making fun of each other. And it was just perfect. Except I kind of put my foot in it as well. But
did you?
Yeah, we're talking about favorite video games. Kevin said
the Madden
Contra, but then The Rock said Madden, and I was like, just go play if Madden's your favorite game, just go play the game. And apparently, I didn't realize this, but Dwayne Johnson tried to be a professional NFL player. But he got an injury and he never made it to like the pro status. But that's something that he tried to do. And of course, Kevin knew that. So he brought it up. And then again, though, that's a good moment that they had. But I just looked like an idiot.
That's hilarious. I learned about his potential football career from that interview when I watched it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I watched that and then I was like, oh, what's that joke about? And then I Googled and I was like, oh, shit.
That's the thing. Like if I'm there to talk about the film, I think – how much research are you expected to do? Am I supposed to know absolutely every single thing about this person? Or am I supposed to ask about them and get that information?
But I think those moments are great, you know? Those
Yeah.
are iconic. And I don't think that anybody comfortable enough in their own skin isn't going to, take that to heart. You'd have to be really fragile to, be upset with that kind of clip. I think anyone would recognize that as hilarious.
There are some people that are a little fragile.
Sensitive. Oh, yes.
But on the whole, it's usually quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you experienced any sort of intense backlash from some of the interviews,
From what I've done, not necessarily. But what I think's really scary about the internet these days is that context no longer became important. And when you put a piece of content or a video out on the internet, and I think this is happening with a lot of people, like if you put out podcasts and X amount of hours, if they've been hearing your voice and they've got your wavelength of like how you talk, they can then manipulate your voice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Right?
I mean, as an editor, I know that very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I've had some of my interviews be edited out of context to make me look incredibly bad, and they've gone viral. And it's that thing where it's like, I remember an article got written where they were like, oh, and the video stops right at this moment. We wish we knew what happened afterwards or if this really happened at all. But let's not let context get in the way of a good story. And I was just like, at what point does a 5-minute blip of a good story should come at the cost of my entire career, integrity,
Yeah.
when it was actually a false thing that took place. So that was really, really hard for me to kind of process. The need to kind of explain yourself or to kind of say that's not what happened. And the response being an overwhelming, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what really happened. This is funny.
Nobody cares about the retractions or the corrections or any of the sort of context like you're talking about,
There's a great example going around at the moment. It went viral on TikTok. It was this interviewer doing a junket with Tom Holland for Spider-Man. And you see him sit down and he's like, why do you sound British? And he's like, because I am British. And he's like, but Spider-Man doesn't sound like that. Like, why are you pretending to be British? That's like not cool, dude.
What?
And Tom Holland's like, no, I'm an actor. I'm from London, but I'm playing an American, but this is how I really sound. And so that clip obviously went viral, and this guy looks like an absolute idiot.
Yeah, what was the full?
He was working at a radio station and his co-hosts were feeding him what to say in his ear.
Oh.
And that, of course, changes everything.
Why were they feeding him that?
That was a funny shtick that they thought would be really cool. And this is the world of radio, which I'm very glad I left.
Hilarious. So they thought that would be funny, fed it to this guy, and now, but even if it like, even if it was his own shtick that he came up with, it is just crazy that people are crucifying him over that. Like, it's whatever.
Because it's this tiny little excerpt where you don't see the full picture and all you see is him being like to Tom Holland, why are you pretending to be British? You know, which is just like, what? But I think that when it was sort of revealed that it was this whole sort of like radio prank, people didn't care because it was more interesting that he was stupid.
Yeah, that's how it works, you know? And often they'll have, you know, headlines of the articles where they'll write something just blasphemous about someone, and then in the article it completely contradicts the headline, but nobody reads the article.
No.
So what goes viral and what, you know, gets all the buzz and the talk is the headline. And it's the same sort of thing that we're talking about now. It's just kind of crazy.
Especially when you realize that, and this is why clickbait's become such a huge thing.
Yup.
Shocking, outrage, negative, you know, clasping pearls kind of headlines and content causes views, clicks, engagement. They say that if you have a good experience at a restaurant, you'll tell 3 people. If you have a bad experience at a restaurant, you'll tell 10.
Interesting.
And it's the same sort of thing. We are perpetuating negativity and outrage. And we are so invested in it's why gossip's so huge. We want to hear negative things and see someone be humiliated or, you know, outraged by behavior because that's what we are clicking on. But if there's a feel-good story or if there's something that's spreading positivity, we are just not, as a humanity, engaged as much with that. And I think the more that we spend online, and this is like, I've been doing a lot of work over quarantine and like, you know, but a big part about sort of the compound effect, which is a book that definitely sort of changed the way I thought. Basically, the more you're inundated with the same thing, the more that becomes your identity. So
true.
If you have a negative, you know, if you start saying negative things, if you say 3 negative things a day, your brain will subconsciously start looking for negative things. And then you manifest the negative things. And then that's all that happens. So when we spend so much time on social media where headlines are positioned to outrage and to shock, when people are using social media as a way they get engagement and likes and validation when they say negative things instead of positive things, then no wonder mental health is deteriorating at a rapid rate.
It's such a vicious cycle.
There's a science behind it.
It's really a vicious cycle.
I hate social media.
You know, it's crazy because I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, when it's this idea of manifesting the negative.
Yeah.
You know, if you're friends with someone, for the most part, I just like believing the best in everyone. You know what I mean? Like, I don't,
so good.
I don't like taking things personally. I don't like, you know, thinking and creating stories, whatever. Because first of all, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But also what I have found over the years is that when you start being paranoid with people, start doubting people, who likes me, who doesn't, whatever, you end up manifesting more bad relationships. And maybe, granted, some of them were accurate, but you're also creating some new negative dynamics because of your thinking. So if you just, you know, go out there and you just think the best of everyone and everything is, you know what I mean? You take everything at face value. You don't like dig underneath. You know, it's not like you're looking for problems everywhere. And some people really are. But if you just aren't and you ignore that, then yeah, you know, you might have a few people who don't actually like you that are in your presence, who are fake, whatever. Okay, but that doesn't matter because they're not even in your perspective. And you also then don't create any new negativity at all. Yeah. And then all the positivity just sort of rises to the top and it starts coming out. And I think that that's something that I see all the time around. And it's the same thing in interviews or in career paths or whatever you're doing, even when it comes to food. Like if you're always negative about everything, you are literally going to create that. You know, you're going to be running late. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be this. It just bogs you down.
I feel like if I could put like a visual behind it, it's like every decision that you make or every thought that you have, it's basically putting down a brick on a path, and that brick either has a positive sign or a negative sign on it. And the more the positives sort of like veer to one way and the negative veer to the other way. So if you keep laying down negative bricks, your path just goes into a negative place. You're literally walking into negativity. And I think that's why balance is super important, but I think positivity in this case is incredibly important. I will say though, I think that especially with the pandemic, but with normalizing a lot of sort of mental health, anxiety is a huge one. And I think having anxiety really does sort of make people question, do people like me? Did I say something wrong? It kind of inflicts a sense of paranoia, which can perpetuate negative thinking. And I think that can be really hard. But something that I've dealt with
true.
that I feel like has relinquished a lot of not only anxiety and paranoia, but taking on things that don't exist. My whole understanding is if a person has a problem with me, it is up to them to tell me about it. Mm-hmm. So the whole like no news is good news, that's exactly how I feel it.
You're speaking to my inner soul right now.
Yeah.
I completely agree to that entire, like, you know, when you start thinking, oh, was there an issue? Was I weird? Was I this? Just forget about it. Because if somebody actually has a problem with you, you're right. Then it's their responsibility to come and say something. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, live your life. Yeah.
And, you know, I've lost a friend because she was never able to have those conversations and chose resentment. And so actually over years developed such a resentment for me that the friendship was kind of like couldn't be fixed in their eyes. It was sort of damage was done. And I remember saying to them in a way where it was like, you denied me the chance to address it, to grow, to be better. And instead you just chose to see this, you know, and you were kind of locked on to this thing that I wasn't even aware of. And I was like, that's really, really hard. And I think, yeah, if you just, it's a two-way street. If you think someone's got a problem with you, you can address it. But chances are, like I always say, it's that person's sort of responsibility. The flip side is if something's bothered you, sleep on it. Mm-hmm. If someone's done something and you're like, I didn't like that, give it a day, give it to, I think they say there was a great saying behind it. If something's happened and you're still bothered after 24 hours, say something. And if it doesn't change within 48 hours or whatever it was, or they can't apologize or whatever, then that's sort of like your answer with it all. But I really like that where it's like you got to pick and choose your battles. Some things it's like, you know what? Intention. What was their intention behind that? Was it bad? No, 9 times out of 10, no.
100%.
You know?
Also, I think as much as you're picking and choosing your battles within different people, you're also picking and choosing which people you want to invest that kind of time into, right? So like sometimes, you know, I'll have a problem with someone, but I'm just not that close to them and they're not such a big part of my life that, I mean, the effort it would take to go out and do that's something that I would do for a much closer friend, you know?
And I think that's what we need to kind of start understanding. If someone's bringing up an issue to you, it's because they actually really care about you enough to say it.
Yup. Right there. Uh-huh. So true. Because you don't really bring problems to someone that you're just kind of an acquaintance of, you know?
Yeah.
What the hell with
Unless
that?
it's like the 100th time. But then you just walk away from it because you're like, cool, you've shown me who you are. I'm not going to subscribe to this.
Yeah.
But what I really like about the other side, and it's something that I had to learn in my 20s, is if someone that...
Wait, you're not in your 20s?
I mean, yep.
I thought you 21, no?
Thank you. Ooh, okay, yeah. 21's a stretch. It could have been believable. Maybe 29, maybe, probably not. Thank you, though.
Happy 25th.
Okay, all right. But when friends would come to me with criticism, it was really hard for me to hear it or to learn it, or, you know, I would get instantly defensive. And I think that's a shame component, you know. You let me down in this moment. No, I didn't. You know, and you get defensive. And the big thing that I had to learn was if someone's coming to you with an issue, it's because they do care about you, and they're not going to do it if you do not provide a safe space for them to be able to share that. And I think that that's a two-way street where it's like if you are combative, if you are defensive, no one's going to have enough courage to sort of rock the boat and give you that kind of feedback. And so you end up just isolating everyone in your life because you have a defensive personality. I think something that's super important is someone's like, hey, this has been bothering me. You suck your ego back. You talk less, you listen more, and you learn about the issue and say, cool, this is a little bit for me to process. Can you give me a day?
Yeah,
and
I love that.
And then have your rage, then kind of feel shit about yourself, whatever needs to happen. But that was a big lesson that I had to learn. Yeah, because no one likes hearing something bad about themselves or that you've done something wrong.
Yeah, I like that tactic. And it's the same thing that you shouldn't even be upset if someone's coming to you with criticism that means that they care. To that same regard, like when you accept criticism from someone or just help in general, right? If someone gives you advice, like they call you and say, hey, I think you should do so-and-so, it'd be a really good idea. Or, if I was hosting a space the other day and someone sent me a quick title change. They were like, do this, it'll be better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you can accept anything like that from small to large and you just make the person feel great about the fact that they gave you a good idea or good advice, that's a really fantastic way to build a relationship, to build trust, and to make that person feel valuable.
Yes.
And that's something that Chris Voss actually posted about, I think a while back. And ever since I read that, I have completely shifted my view on criticism, on advice from friends. And I used to feel the same way where I would get defensive initially. Like, oh, okay, you're giving me this advice, but whatever. Now, I don't care what it is. If I disagree or I agree, I just don't care. I accept it. I say, wow, thank you so much. That's a great idea. Even if I'm not going to use it, what does it matter?
Yeah.
People are calling because they care. And I that piece of advice really shifted it. And I think if you put those two together, what you're saying about that person actually cares about you and you have this opportunity to make them feel valuable and great and build that trust. I mean, that's a special dynamic and it can completely shift how you view taking criticism, which really is a big part of life right now, especially with social media, like you were talking about.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point that you made, because I know for me personally, I just have a really adverse reaction to the term "you should." Do you know what you should do? It's the simplest thing where if it's like, have you ever thought about, or could I suggest? But there's just something.
Or you can even would be better. Yeah.
But this, I don't know if it's from my childhood or, being a woman working in a very heavily male dominated arena, but there's just something about you should where I'm just like, nah, and I just not shut off, and I'm like, blah, blah. But I think
it's like a trigger phrase.
You're
just like, oh,
should I? Should I?
Oh yeah. Oh, you think? Oh, okay.
And it's like not warranted. And what you just said is actually exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, where you can flip that completely. And this is probably my ego talking, where it's just, or defensive mechanism, whatever it is. But I've had a couple of friends where it's, you know what you should do? You should. And I'm just like, hey, I'd really ask for you to just not say you should to me, because I notice that I don't listen to whatever it is.
You're like, everything you say after that, I don't even
want.
Like, yeah, you think I should, but I didn't even hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But great feedback that I think people are really taking on, especially, I don't know if it's like my algorithm on social media, but this has been like a big thing in the last couple of years. And that is like, you're an adult when you realize sort of like the best thing that you can say to a friend is, do you want to vent or do you want advice?
Oh, I heard about this on one of your other podcasts, Theyre.
Oh, my Theyre.
I love that.
Yeah.
I thought that's such a fantastic tactic. It's just like a really good.
It should be a part of like your 5 love languages. It's like, well, what do you like when you're upset?
Yeah. Can you explain that to people? Because I feel like it's so great and everyone should use it.
Yes. Theyre is something that I really had to learn. I learned it from my mum. She taught me the phrase because I couldn't put my finger on it. But when I was really worked up, whether I'd gone through a breakup, when I'd had bad news, where I kind of was having a bit of an emotional hurricane almost. My friends closest to me didn't really know how to handle that. And I think when I was in that state, it's like, do you want to do this? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to do that? I don't know. And they're like, well, what do you want? Fix. I need to get a solution from this right now because you're not good and I want to make it good. And I just did not have the capacity to kind of identify what it is that I wanted. But it turned out all I needed was something called Theyre. And for a friend to sit next to me, put their arm around me, or just put their arm on me and just not really even say anything. It's just that comfort and that presence of them just sitting with me, not trying to fix, not trying to advise, not trying to do anything else, say the right thing, because that's the hardest part sometimes.
To say the right thing
but
really
it turns
is.
out saying nothing at all was the most powerful thing that could happen with me. But how do you know that when you can't even articulate it or verbalize it in the moment? And what ended up happening again with a couple of friends, when I was in that state, they would bail. They were like, you're hard, you're difficult, I tread on tiptoes around you when you're like that. You don't know what you want, and so it's just easier for me to leave. And it was so kind of lonely and heart-wrenching to know that all I actually needed was the exact opposite. I needed them as close to me as possible, It's
so hard. I feel like a lot of people think that other people think the same way as them.
Yes.
And that's actually something that I had to click out of. I'll never forget one time one of my friends, she said that when she goes home from an argument, she's always thinking about, oh my God, what they said was kind of right. Maybe I was wrong here. Oh, why did I say that? And that's when I realized people are very different to me, because when I go home from an argument, I'm thinking of more of the argument. I am like adding more to my case. I'm like, oh, and da 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 da, and I'm so right about that. And oh my God, and like that point and that point, like, oh my God, I'm so right. You know?
You should have been a lawyer.
And yeah, I would have fucking killed it. And that really clicked for me. But even though that was that kind of an example, it applies to everything. And emotional processing is exactly what we're talking about here, because they don't process emotions like you do.
Yes.
And because they're solution oriented when they're having issues, they couldn't understand that that's just not what you needed in that moment in order to be able to get to the point that they assumed you'd get to with all of these solutions.
Yes.
You know?
100% that.
And it's, I wish that more people could advocate for themselves in those moments, because I think there would be a lot less loneliness, a lot less, breakups, and just, even just relationship breakups and things like that. If people could just express more of what they actually needed without the shame that because that other person doesn't do it the same way, they'll, abandon ship.
Yeah. And I think that's really hard when you're at your most vulnerable, people are afraid of you. And it's just a miscommunication or not knowing how to do something right, Yeah, these are the huge adult lessons that I've sort of learned. A little bit too late sometimes, but better late than never.
I mean, I think everyone, it's all at our own pace, I feel like.
I feel like in my 20s, it was more kind of what you were saying.
You mean right now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Happy 25th.
Thank you. Yeah. So for the first half of the decade, I would always sort of justify me. And what I was thinking and what I wanted from it, and kind of how you were processing the arguments.
Yes,
where it's
which, by the way, I don't do as much now. I am more like, okay.
But no, but this is like a thing. I think the more you're in them, and but there's something about sort of being younger, and that's the most important thing. And then in your 30s, it's more about sort of like, all right, what were they trying to say? And it is that opposite, where it's like you then kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit more. But I feel like you almost have to understand yourself and learn what you're fighting for and what makes you you and what your values are before you can then learn and appreciate and understand someone else. So I think that's almost like the natural progression in how our mind sort of works and analyzes situations.
So true. Often we take things personally if a friend ghosts us or abandons us or whatever, but most of the time it's because they're going through their own emotional shit.
Yeah.
I had a friend once recently was talking to me about how she was upset that people only call her when things are bad and not when they're good. And I looked at her and I said, when are things ever good? I was like, most people are almost always going through something, And, I'm sure that there is, happier people than others. Of course, people are, different in that way, but everybody's always having something. So just because, and I told her, maybe look at it from a different perspective. Maybe they're coming to you because they're so comfortable that they can actually bring their most vulnerable side
without
to
judgment.
You. Yes.
Without shame. Yeah.
Which is really hard.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where if you have good news, you tell 3 friends. But when you have bad news, you tell 10. Yeah. And that's why you get inundated with bad news more than good. I've had to cap some people off. I've noticed a few people sort of either online or in my life where they sort of used me as a dumping ground. Maude's a good listener. Maude will give good advice. Maude will hear me out. Maude will try to understand me.
Because you're the rock type of a friend. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's just like the phone would ring and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to mentally be in a place to take this call.
Yeah.
Because I just know the floodgate's going to open and it'll be my responsibility to get them in a better place, but it's at the cost of my sort of sanity.
100%. I rarely take on new friendships that will reach that kind of a level because first of all, I have some really amazing, great friends that I have very healthy boundaries with currently. And adding somebody else on, I also have my family. We're 5 kids. So you can imagine there's 4 siblings. That's already a handful. Now tack on all of my current existing fantastic friends. For me to add on somebody else, rarely will I answer those kind of phone calls. If somebody calls me and they vent to me for 30 minutes now or an hour, they get me on the phone for an hour and a half, chances are very low that I'm picking up the phone the next time.
Yes. Yes, I need to know that a quick and concise phone call exists.
Yes.
I have another friend, well, can we just chat for 5 minutes? It's like, I know it's going to be minimum 45.
Yeah, and I can't do that.
And I think it's the other thing where it's like introverts and extroverts. Some people, even though they are an introvert, they gain energy by connecting with friends in long conversations. But that drains another person.
So true. And also different types of conversations can be more draining than others. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shallow or deep. That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. So you're on social media. You're pretty big on social media.
I'm on social media.
But you're also on Twitch, which is a really unique part of the internet, in my opinion, because you're also in gaming and it's just a whole other sphere. And you mentioned, this male-dominated industry that you're in.
Yep.
I mean, most of the industries you've dabbled in have been wildly male-dominated, but I think gaming is especially.
Yeah, it's the ugly. There's an ugliness in that side of the world that save yourself.
Do you feel like, God, that's actually why I haven't dabbled in Twitch, was because when you told me that about all the comments that you got, I was just scared.
Yeah, it's difficult because gaming and the geek culture, I was raised a nerd. Like my dad put me on video games when I was about 4 or 5.
Which is one of my favorite facets of you, by the way.
Oh, that I'm a nerd.
I love how hardcore you go on nerdy stuff and just completely unapologetic, Dungeons and Dragons, like the whole.
I play D&D. I play video games professionally and on my own.
Yeah,
like
I love that.
Oh, I love
people with passions that, they just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And
it completely sort of like contradicts a be part of my life. Like I'm an entertainment reporter.
Yeah.
Interview celebrities.
A-list celebrities, and then you're going off and playing games. But hey, that's, the tattoos. That's what's connecting. So
exactly.
100%.
And, I've played Dungeons and Dragons with Joe Manganiello, who's talking about his wife, Sofia Vergara, and how she's kind of like trying to understand this stuff.
Yes.
But this is the thing. It's like there is a little bit of overlap from time to time. Not often at all. It's actually hard in the dating world where it's like I've been dumped because we have nothing in common.
You have to teach me Dungeons and Dragons one day. I'm
Okay.
dying to learn.
It's
it looks
so
like the
great.
most
It's
complicated,
so much fun.
magical situation ever. I would get so into it. I'm a passion addict.
I thought you were going to say, I'm a bard elf. I'm like,
I don't know what that is, but fantastic.
Got it. But I guess what's really, really hard about sort of me trying to forge a career in the geek space is a couple of things. One, I look like Princess Peach. It's this blonde girl who likes what they like, and so I'm put on this pedestal, and like a sense of like almost worship, where they're like, "Wow, I want to know you, I want to be around you, I want to."
Oh, like an unhealthy infatuation almost.
Parasocial relationships.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I have a lot of that. The flip side is, I think for some of them, I look like the girl that bullied them for liking this thing.
Oh, wow. That's a very fascinating perspective.
And so it's almost this vitriolic, how dare you?
Oh, how dare you enter our space?
Infiltrate this world that you shunned and degraded and shamed me for.
They're like nerdy boys only.
And it's like, no, I really like this. So it's having to kind of balance both of those extremes, which is like, I love you, I'm obsessed with you, I found out what your address is by piecing together 2 years of information.
Oh my God.
Or
that's so creepy.
I want you to die and I want your family to hate you, and, rape threats up the wazoo. So
yeah, the threats like that, the death threats and things, they come through. Do you get a lot of that to your inbox, or is it mostly comments on streams?
Streams is actually okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
What I like about streaming on Twitch is that you'll have sort of like volunteer moderators who have a bit of power and the access to delete, ban,
like the hall monitors of Twitch.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So if someone steps a toe out of line, if someone's, mean or whatever, it gets handled instantly. And most of the time I don't even know it's happened. So I like that.
That's cool.
The abuse I think is really hard. The biggest perpetrators for that are Twitter and YouTube. I think YouTube because the content's up there forever. And so I posted something 5 years ago and I can get like,
Yeah, Shanni did watch some of that stuff. Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
And there'll be like, a comment popped up, I hate everything about this woman, her face sucks. And you're like, oh, good morning.
They're like, well, ain't that lovely? And they spell sucks like S-U-X.
Yeah. There's women. Yeah. But then Twitter as well, because I like social media where you have a little bit more control with what you get.
Oh, like you control your algorithm feed a bit more?
No. How people participate and engage with you.
Oh, so limiting comments or, you can only inbox me if you follow me or I follow you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like having a few more steps or the ability to delete what they are saying. Twitter won't let you do that. If someone wants to post a post, your only options are to mute them, which means only you can't see it. It still exists in the world, or to block them, which means they can no longer see anything that you're posting. It doesn't stop them. It doesn't silence them. It doesn't delete their hate and vitriol.
And you can't delete replies to your tweet, right? If you delete your tweet, the replies are still up there. I noticed that recently.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can still say it. And I think that that's a really dangerous platform. This obviously snowballs into a whole conversation about free speech.
Right.
Which I absolutely understand. There is such a difference between a free speech and like being able to kind of say, share, express, and being an absolute dickwad. Yeah. Like there is such a difference.
Yeah,
you can provide feedback without being hateful and hurtful. And I think that the best example that I had, because I remember someone being like, oh, Maude deletes all the comments that are abusive towards her. And I'm like, you're goddamn right I do.
Yeah.
Because the equivalent is if we're in the real world, I always picture like I'm at a train station, I'm walking down and someone comes up to me and they're like, fuck you, you're so fat and ugly, I hate everything that you do, and they're in my face. I'm not going to sit there and be like, no, keep going.
Yeah, please stay in my space.
That's it. I'm going to run, I'm going to leave, I'm going to call someone to get them out.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same with a comment towards me. They're coming into my space where I am and they're yelling stuff. I should have an ability to be like, no, you don't get to do that.
Well, you're also talking about stuff on your own pages, right? Replies to you.
Yes.
This is not necessarily going and like deleting something from someone's profile. This is what they're interacting and they're engaging with you and your username.
Yes.
So I completely agree with that. I think the death threat part is crazy to me. I used to get death threats from Saniac. I got it also from my Israel video. I mean, nonstop, but that was like just pockets, just moments. And I feel like you've probably had that for so long because it can get kind of crazy during that time.
My very, very first comment on my very first video that I put up on YouTube in 2012 was a comment. Basically, it was racist. It was a violent rape threat.
Dear God.
It was, oh my God. It was so ridiculous that the girl I did the video with cried.
Aww.
But I don't know. I tried to provide logic behind it. But it was like, I hope you get raped by a pack of N-words so bad that you cannot have children and you become retarded.
Oh my God.
So I'm sorry for saying the R word. It's in the case of context of this being the quote.
It's fine. We said ivermectin on the last episode. We're already going to be canceled.
Okay. But for that to be, for that to be my very, very first comment, I'm just like,
crazy.
There was just so much going on. Like there was a checklist.
Yeah. Talk about it. Talk about an entrance into YouTube.
And I got every single, so my friend is crying and I was just like, that's a really disrespectful collective noun to use for a group of people. A pack. I was like, I don't think that's nice. Like, really, if we could just start anywhere, let's address that. And anyway, I broke it down further and further. My friend's like, how can you say this? And I'm just like, because it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Well, you gotta have a tough skin if you're going to be doing what you're doing nonstop. Putting content out there is a dangerous game.
And I will say I entered the arena because I was already a TV host before Facebook.
Oh.
So if I wanted to read shit about me, I had to go on the forums.
Oh, shit.
Like that was it.
The really horribly designed forums, Yahoo Answers.
Yes. So that was sort of like and I worked on a kids network.
I was going to ask you about that. So you did kids TV, right? What was that?
Oh, I hosted sort of like, they would do the afternoon sort of shows.
Yeah, like little kid specials.
So it's like a series of about 4 different Nickelodeon shows, and then it would cut to sort of like the links in between it. So it's called
cool.
interstitials.
Okay.
So we would do the afternoon block segment with, SpongeBob and Avatar and Fairly Odd Parents and all of those cartoons, but we had like through line content. So we did that, my co-host and I. But I also hosted this show called Camp Orange.
Okay, that
which
sounds great.
did 4 seasons.
Was it
of
a
that.
competition show?
It was.
Oh my God, it sounds like something I would be so into.
Okay.
I love competition shows.
Kids were obsessed because it was like the first sort of like in Australia reality TV show just for kids.
Oh, that
it
was
was-
like, what was that show for us? Endurance? Do you remember that? Endurance? I love that show. It was like the kids' version of Survivor.
So it was like that.
Yeah, oh
but
my
no one
God.
got voted out because we didn't want to absolutely torment these children and be like,
Well, this is American TV. They got
right,
tormented. Yeah.
got it. America's so litigious. I don't even know how they can get away with that. But yeah,
Okay, so Camp Orange.
yeah, 4 teams of best friends participate in 2 challenges a day for the week, and it's like those with the most points wins the title of Camp Orange.
Nice.
But
What
you
were
had
what were
to-
the sort of games?
Oh, it really depended season to season. But like some of them there would be like a giant sort of like metal log that was greased up, and they had to try and like walk over it and fall into the mud.
Like hysterical stuff, basically.
But also like with a camp sort of
Right,
aspect
vibe.
to it. Yeah. But I think the big part of it was that you had to audition to be a part of the show. I had mothers bribe me to try and get their kids on this show. It was so fun. This woman sent me like $500 worth of face products.
Wow.
Because she worked for La Prairie. I don't know if I should be saying the name. And I was like, 20? 21 with like this incredibly expensive face product. By the way, my daughter watches Camp Orange. Please consider her. She's going under this team name. And you're just kind of like,
You're just like, yeah, considered.
But it was like this whole process.
Did you help with casting?
When it got down to the shortlist, yes, I did.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you were heavily involved. You host, but
Not
also
the first couple, but then
Okay. Once you start being more of a resident and
Yeah.
that's your show that
Yeah.
you're host. That's really cool. Did it do well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they sold the rights, and then there was like a Camp Orange Italy, Camp Orange France.
Very
Yeah, it
cool.
like went global.
That's a great show. There is such a vast difference between American reality shows and British reality shows. Have you?
Yes.
Have you seen
The Great British Bake Off?
Yeah. Have you seen the meme that goes British shows? Okay, everyone, you have 4 hours and all the ingredients you could ever need and more, and ample, supplies to get this done. And then the American show is like, all right, you're at a gas station. You have 10 minutes to create a Michelin star 4-course meal.
Yeah.
You have this
Without
and this and
dying.
this as yeah. Like, go.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. And it reminds me kind of also of what we're talking about here with Endurance, and then obviously the Australian show Camp Orange.
Yeah.
I mean, it is pretty, like, if you saw Endurance was ruthless. It was a great show.
I think it was sort of watching that show Unreal, which was a scripted drama show.
Love Unreal with
Yes, her.
Yes, and
Yes.
Constance Zimmerman.
Yes.
Whom I love and follow on Instagram, which is just Shirley Applebaum. Shirley, yes. Apple.
Is it bomb or
No,
bottom?
but-
Apple.
I don't know, but she owns John and Vinny's.
Really?
Yeah, she's a part owner. She's always promoting them. Yeah.
God, Shanni?
No.
Shibby? Shelby? You're Shanni.
I gotta find
You're like,
it out.
sweetie, there's only one.
I'm like, actually, there is a couple. But wait, okay, continue. So Unreal.
I felt that really kind of showcased what it's like behind the scenes of these reality shows, because we are just not really privy to it.
Sherry Appleby.
Sherry.
There we go.
Sherry.
Did you
Appleby.
feel like that was accurate? Because you've worked on these shows.
Yes. And I think that if I didn't start in children's television, where I decided to be a good role model because there were so few options for this demographic that I was in, which was sort of like your 9 to 14-year-olds. And this is when, I don't know about you, but 9 to 14, I was heavily influenced and inundated with how I should be perfect. And I just felt that there were so few role models that we could look up to.
Absolutely.
And so I kind of wanted to be one of them, because this is, around the time where Miley Cyrus was showing her cooch everywhere. And I'm like, oh, that was Hannah Montana. Oh, no. It's like, okay. And so I took that to heart. I still to this day really try to have a very clean brand image, just to hold one down for the kids. But I think that it put a very different perspective. Instead of sort of exploitation, it was protection. We have to protect kids. We have to, not protect them in the way where it's like, don't do anything, helicopter parent, but it's just like, look out for them, believe in them, sort of appreciate, be there for them.
Do you feel like this was are you talking about specifically with the kids that were on set with you on the show, or
No,
is this your audience?
my audience.
Your audience.
Yeah.
Got it.
Where it's just like, I just felt that Facebook was kind of coming out there and, hearing studies about how many girls have issues with eating disorders.
Oh, yeah.
I
went through that.
Three of my best friends, I had a group of 4 of us in high school and 3 of them had eating disorders. And I felt like sort of the mother hen going, what have I done wrong? But I just, I think if I didn't have or learn a particular type of integrity by doing kids television, that I would probably have been a very, very good reality TV producer.
Interesting.
Because I understand television, what makes a good moment, that interaction, trying to create. I've done actually quite a bit of reality TV, hosting it, and pepping them up and making sure. And is this a new moment? How can we provide drama here? After seeing Unreal, that show made me physically ill. I had anxiety watching it. And it's like, I don't know. There is a level of exploitation that we have. Australia is actually really bad for it at the moment. We have a show called Married at First Sight.
Yeah, no, I know about it, yeah.
And I think that there are some producers who, the better they are at their job, the worse they are as a person.
Yeah. So my old show, Bleav Podcast, actually was all about reality TV, and I applied for both Big Brother and The Circle, did not get in, applied twice for Big Brother.
Great.
I know. I think it's just completely absurd. I mean, it's their loss,
Yeah.
But it was also my gain because I completely agree with you. First of all, I would have made a great reality TV producer as well. And I actually think it's the same skill set that lends to interviews, and especially the kind that you do where you're sitting like I'm with friends. It's much easier. It's people that I know I'll have a good conversation with. Whereas, something that you're having to do in the junkets is sort of extract moments from people, these sound bites, these goodies, these things that you can turn into clips and to usable footage. And that's essentially what a reality TV producer is doing as well. They're producing their cast to try and get these sort of moments. And so I agree, you'd probably make a great producer in that way, but it is true. I have a friend who works for Fullwell. Shoot, what's their name? I forget.
Fullscreen?
No, Fullwell. They're in England. They're in the UK.
Oh, okay.
But they have a brother company here, which is James Corden's company, and I think they're doing the Hulu Kardashian series now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she has a friend who was on Love Island as a producer, at the original UK version. And I remember when I was applying to Big Brother and to this, and I was asking her like a bunch of questions, and she said, Sean, just don't do it.
Yeah.
These are the worst people. It's the worst place. You're going to be miserable. They have none of your best intentions at heart.
Ever.
I mean, at all. And it's so true. It's so scary what that world is.
You're a storyline. And it's come straight back to the internet where context is irrelevant. But it's like, we don't care how we get there. We don't care what it costs or who we have to step on to get that moment. That moment is the most important thing. So if we have to lie, if we have to exploit, if we have to trigger their vulnerabilities and manipulate them, roll the cameras, let's go. Yeah. And that is something that I cannot do. In fact, I've actually had moments in my junket interviews where an answer from a celebrity I felt could be misconstrued. And so I went to the publicist and I was like, I would like you to remove this because in good conscience, I don't want to have this because it could destroy them. The publicist was like, this is never, you're an anomaly. People would have just run the article. People would have just gone with that and they'd like, screw whoever, it was their problem. They said it's their fault. And I'm like, we just don't have any kind of compassion with human error anymore because
we really don't.
I feel like, especially this is what it feels like being having a public image online.
Yeah,
everyone is just waiting for you to fail, and the second you do, they are jumping on it to rub it in your face,
like hyenas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like as soon as you do one little thing wrong, take one step out of line, which is why, like sharing content and asking to be judged, it barely feels worth it for me anymore. But there's something I personally feel a little bit deranged by the masses just in that mode of attack. And I think there's a great image actually that I saved recently where it was like, this is what it's like being on social media these days. The post, I prefer mangoes over oranges. Random person.
I know where this is going.
How dare you? So on behalf of all oranges, fuck you. By the way, notice you didn't mention pears, bananas, and strawberries. What's wrong with those other fruits, you bigot? Oh my God, I'm literally shaking. Cancelled. And you're like, but I just said I like mangoes more than oranges.
Yeah, you're like, dear God.
That's it. People are waiting to find fault. And it's just like, how did that standard get placed upon all of us? But then if you strive for perfection, that's unrealistic and you're being fake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly why I love doing Instagram stories when I look like shit. It's very intentional. I do that because I think the world needs to see a balance. And just because I have a morning after face and my hair can be, in a giant mess or whatever, doesn't mean I also can't look really great when I go out.
Yeah.
And I think some people think that if you portray the bad side, people will think that when you look good, you're not actually looking good. You know what I mean? Which is like this weird, it's almost as if we just can't be human anymore.
We cannot be human.
And it's a horrible precedent to set for anybody,
Yes.
And I think once you start trying to be that perfect self, then
you lose a sense of your own identity.
oh, absolutely. Who do you even become at
But
that
have
point?
you also noticed that the people that are genuinely themselves and were celebrated for it, Jennifer Lawrence, we loved her because she was real. She told great stories. She was effortless. She was, the girl next door. She was, not trying to be perfect, and she wore her faults. And then that lasted 5, 8 years before we got sick of it.
Yeah.
And we didn't like how normal she was. And you're like, oh my God, you just cannot win.
I always see that happen, and to me, it's like the overplaying of songs on the radio. It's the sort of same thing where we're given a person and we're shown them so much that after a certain amount of time, everybody just becomes, you like them? They're so mainstream, or oh my God, I can't believe you actually. And it can be exhausting, but some people, it seems like it happens more to women. Not to be one of those people, but I mean, come on, guys, it's pretty apparent, and it's a shame. It really is. You touched on something though that was really interesting, which is this idea of integrity. And I really want to discuss that because that's something that's so near and dear to my heart. When I was at boarding school, we got these words that every year we got a different word at the retreat that we would go to, and we had to work on them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, not that I'm condoning the troubled teen industry, but I actually loved this part because I think it really made me a better person. And one of my words one year, the one before, was honest. And then the next one was integrity. And obviously there's a theme there because I used to lie a ton when I was a kid. Just white lies nonstop. I don't know what it was. I felt like I needed to lie to be cool,
Right.
Like it was this, do you know that band? Yeah, I know that band. Of course I do, And one time somebody got me, they told me a band that wasn't really a band and it was really fucking annoying, But that was, and integrity was something that ever since that moment has been drilled into me. And it's about doing the right thing when no one's watching, right? When nobody's actually, and coming back to LA, I don't know if you felt this. When I moved back here from Israel, I started noticing that people cared so much more about the perception. It was, they showed me like this photo. Do I look like I'm having fun? Do I look like, and I'm thinking to myself, are you having fun?
Yes. The perception, the mask we wear, we're literally polishing the mask instead of trying to be ourselves. So it's so funny that integrity was such a strong word for you. I figured out what my core value words were during the pandemic. Game changer. Authenticity. So I can't lie.
Yeah.
But then also growth mindset. So I always want to learn.
I love that.
And having fun. But I think that integrity piece is very much sort of who I am. I want to share a story, but I feel like if I do, it goes against everything that I'm trying to say. But I've started, during the pandemic, I realized the people that it was hitting the hardest were the elderly. No one gives a shit about the elderly. And it's just, if you really look, next time you're at the grocery store, really, really look around and look at if you find an old person there. Chances are they are buying less than $20 worth of things and they are cashing, like they are paying dollar by dollar, They just don't have much money or resources. And so I think this is a lot to do with the fact that I lost my grandmother and I was her primary carer when I was younger and she died in front of me. So it's like a big thing. But
Wow, that's so hard.
Yeah.
How old were you?
14.
Holy
Messed
crap.
with me. But I wanted to just, I don't know, give back to the elderly in that way. And so every time I was paying for my groceries and there was another elderly person around me, I would take care of their groceries.
Oh, I love that.
Sometimes it's backfired.
Has it?
Yep, they scream, "I'm not homeless." And I'm like, I don't think you are.
Some of them have like, they come from a very stubborn, proud generation.
I just want to do this for you. Then other ones, I just noticed that they just want to talk. They're so lonely. And like giving them just like an hour to chat is probably the most rewarding thing that they want. But yeah, it's never much money. But the other thing that I try to do is if there's other people around, get them to see that I'm doing it. Yeah. Because hopefully my hope is that it then inspires them and they see how effortless it is, they see how easy it is, and they see how rewarding it can be. And then it hopefully will inspire them because they'll come up to me and they're like, "That was really nice." And I'm kind of like, you can do it too.
Well, it's
$20 here and there.
It becomes a part of the culture if you're doing it around people. If people feel comfortable doing things that they've seen other people do, right? That's a part of their culture, a part of the
But I'm
the
not
atmosphere.
on social media. I'm not taking a selfie of us together.
Yeah.
Being like, "Look at Lorraine that I helped today. Yay." I just want to, it's something that I do for me. And this is a thing where it's like, who are you when no one's watching? But it's a two-way thing. I'm trying to make someone's day and make their week just a little bit better and just so that they feel like they're not ignored in community, like I feel like we just completely shun them in the community. But hopefully also set that precedent that other people can just effortlessly help as well. It's a community effort.
I love that.
But one time this poor woman, she had a walker to help her. She sat down afterwards because I could see she was exhausted. And I was kind of like, how did you get here? She lived 15 minutes away from the grocery store. She lived 15 minutes away. It took her 2.5 hours.
She walked?
She got 3 buses.
Wow.
She needed to get 3 buses to get to the grocery store. And then it was another 2.5 hours to get home.
God, that's so sad.
15 minutes each way. So I obviously drove her home.
Yeah.
And she chatted for like 2 hours and she got everything out. She told me stuff that I don't think she'd told someone for 40 years. But she just needed someone to listen to. But it just kind of breaks my heart that it's just some of the most powerful things that we can do to help are not an inconvenience, are not hard, are almost effortless to do. And it's just like, if we all kind of just did that, if we were all just a little bit better, even if it's I love your pants today, they look great. You instantly smile. You're like, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah.
We have the power to make someone's day.
We really do. I love compliment. My favorite new compliment is, "Oh, your ambiance is amazing."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that because it's something that only they can.
Because you know what? A lot of people have great ambiance. You know what I mean? And a lot of people have really fantastic energy, especially when you first meet them and they're just open and, if you're out. And I think it's a great compliment that isn't something that's surface level, but is really enjoyable and not something most people will hear. So they always light up.
Yeah.
And then their ambiance becomes better.
And it took absolutely nothing from you to be able to say that, except, the one part that is crucial in this piece is the genuine authenticity.
Yes.
Don't go around going,
oh, you're great.
Yeah. Shoes. No, wait, jacket. Yeah, your jacket's nice. Did you feel better? It's like, no, you got to mean it. But it goes back to way earlier than we were talking about. The more you start looking for positive things, the more times you are trying to find something to compliment about someone, the more it surfaces, the easier it becomes, and the more you notice it.
Yeah, it's so true.
Build good habits.
I love what you said about, living your life the same, like just being the same, both, in private and in public.
That's my best compliment.
Which I think is
you're
fantastic.
Exactly the same person in front of the camera as you are behind it.
Right. I feel like that's something that's so, I've struggled with the idea of there are obviously things that are private in a person's life, but I'm just not a private person. I don't want to be because I feel like so many people are, and it's only done more to sort of heighten what you're talking about, which is this idea that, we all have to be perfect and this ideal. And I think that comes, and obviously there are some, I'm not like, going out there having sex on camera right now. There are certain things that are, still going to stay private for me. But I do feel like, just having real life moments out there in the public sphere, looking mediocre, walking your dog in your pajamas, like just being a human, you know what I mean? Having days where you've just slept for 3 of them, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I do feel like that really ties into this new perspective that people have on mental health, which I think is really important. And it's something that I was going to ask you about specifically within the gaming world, because I know, for example, I'm in a very computer heavy industry, but I'm not a gamer. Your eyes are focused on the screen. You have hands in consoles the whole time. Like, I might click something to play and be able to sort of sit back a little bit. I think it's just a different level of intensity, and that can be really intense on mental health, and also the 16 hours, this hour,
Yes and no.
Well, how do you feel
how can I justify it?
No. So how do you feel like it helps your mental health? And then how do you feel like it hurts? Because obviously it helps a little bit.
It can, yes. Yeah. The hurt ones are really, really easy. It's when, and the broadest stroke I could put on it is anything not in moderation can be harmful. So we're looking at an addiction piece.
Very true.
And it's like if you are neglecting your social life, your work, if you are prioritizing it above everything else, if you do not have a healthy relationship with whatever it is, video game gets a really, really tough rap. But stop making games that are over 100 hours to finish and we won't be on it for so long.
Wait, I'm sorry. There's games that are 100 hours to finish?
Yes.
So can you pause and come back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You don't have to stay for 100 hours.
You do not. No. But there are games that are like the MMO games, which means massively multiplayer online. So when you go on.
Is that like Call of Duty and stuff?
It's more like World of Warcraft. So it's like your character.
The same?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Great.
One's an FPS, one's an MMO. Hello.
Oh, guys, sorry. Woo. Wait, what's FPS?
First person shooter.
Oh, okay.
You're right.
First person shooter is Call of Duty.
Yes, but you are right in that
you can play with friends
online.
Right.
Yes, a lot of games you can play online.
Right,
so
right.
It's actually weird because back when I'm not saying my age. The original way you'd play video games is you'd all sit on the couch and play together. And so it was a bonding experience in person.
Right.
And now it's a very isolating experience. So even though you're socializing, you're not actually in the same room together.
Right. It's all just the sort of communication live or whatever.
Yeah. So they're the harmful ways. Obviously, a lot of gamers, if you listen to how they communicate with women online, is abhorrent and awful. It's a very bro culture. I mean, you're there trying to kill people with the Call of Duty. So that's harmful. The positives, though, is it's a form of escapism. And I think escapism, it's got light and shade. That word. There is good parts of escapism and then there's bad parts of escapism.
I agree, though. I think there's some great parts.
I always would question this where it's like I read a lot of fantasy books. Like I love magic and dragons and all that nerdy shit.
Yeah, your dog's name is Zelda.
My dog's name is Zelda because I rescued a princess.
So cute, by the way.
I love her. But I found myself asking, what am I trying to escape from? My life's pretty cool. Why am I trying to leave that life behind and then have this one? And it's because it's a fantastical thing that doesn't exist in reality.
Yeah,
we don't have dragons.
New.
We don't have magic.
Yeah, we don't have dragons. I mean, we might.
Ooh.
Who knows?
That's the kind of conspiracy theory I could get behind if I was to ever.
But I got our tinfoil hat.
Yeah, it's a dragon. But yeah, there's something about being able to disassociate with sort of like your mundane, like if there's a mundane life or if, you're going through depression, you get to kind of just time out and be someone else that can do things that you can't do in your life. I think there's something really incredible about that. My argument also is I get, a lot of movie watchers be like, video games. And I'm like, listen, movie experience is a very passive experience. You are watching something that someone else directed, wrote, acted. You have no part in it.
So true.
You watch that movie 100 times, it starts and ends exactly the same way. When you play video games, you are a character in it. So your actions, your decisions, all of them create the narrative that you want. So you are a very interactive part of that experience. So one is disengaging and one is completely engaging. And I think that there's something really, really cool about being able to act through the interactive part of video games.
I love how you compare the TV and video games because it's true. One is, and I will sit and watch a whole season in one go. So it's not like, I mean, it's not like I'm spending my time
Your only decision was to be like, yes, I'll play another one. I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. God, it's so offensive when they ask that.
Oh my gosh. I think they stopped it. I think you can.
Yeah, you can change the setting, but on my Roku, it's annoying to go, and it always will pop up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yes, I'm still here. Where else would I be? How freaking rude.
I'm a committed I don't walk away when they press play.
Absolutely not. Okay, so I really want to talk about Geek Bomb because we have to get into that because that is so cool. I wanted to buy a whole Shop What outfit and be in that for this episode, but it just completely
Shop What
slipped my mind.
I've learned a lot about running a clothing apparel company, and I feel like I was very tested, and I found out everything that could have gone wrong, and it did.
Oh, great!
Which was
lovely.
But it came back to integrity. They wanted to move all production to China to make it faster and cheaper, and I said no. I wanted to keep it in Long Beach.
Oh,
and
wow!
They moved the production anyway without my consent.
Do you not own it?
It's through a manufacturing company. So I make the designs and
Got it.
What do they call it? Drop shipping.
Got it.
So the order goes through them, they make it, they send it. Yeah. But then they moved the
everything.
production. Oh, I was furious. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. So Geek Bomb, give me like the general umbrella because it does so many different things. I don't even know how to explain it or interpret it really.
Yeah, that's because I don't.
Oh, great. This will be lovely then.
They say any good business, you should be able to know your elevator pitch. You should be able to give it one line on what your company is. And I go, well, it's
You're like, do you guys have an hour?
Well, we also but basically it's a geek culture media company.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
though,
but I nearly had an aneurysm trying to get there, and it was 4 words.
It's a pretty good 4 words. That does kind of sum it up.
Yeah, a geek culture media company.
So what do you?
But also like not.
But also not so much. So if you could explain your content, because you do so many different things. There's the Patreon.
Yep.
And then, which I'm still a member of.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're so cute. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about you. You are one of the most supportive people.
Aww.
And you have this, you want to give without receiving. And it's not transactional. It is so genuine. And that's my favorite thing about you. And I think I've told you 10 times and I'm going to keep telling you that.
I love supporting my friends. I get really happy when I see people succeeding or just doing things.
Do you know how rare that is?
Yeah, even like Jeff Bezos, I feel good for the guy.
What?
Like, I don't know how to explain it. I know everyone hates him and whatever, but I'm just like, damn, wow, congratulations. Like,
I just hope you get
that.
everything that you dream because you are so happy for other people.
Aww.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that really comes through because I really am. I just love when people do things. I just get so proud of people because I know how hard it is to do stuff.
Yeah.
Anything, like even waking up for some people is so hard,
Yeah.
And so to just watch people living life and then living it to a level where they're actually putting in, so much effort. So when I found Geek Bomb, I was like, this is so cool, and then there's the Shop What and everything attached. And I just think it's so great that you're just diving headfirst into it, and it's completely fan funded, right?
It is.
Right? So how does that work?
So Geek Bomb is about to celebrate its 10-year anniversary.
Hell yeah.
Which is bonkers.
Snaps for Geek Bomb.
And it was about 5 years ago that we decided to become fan funded. So one part of Geek Bomb is that I will do sort of like original programming on YouTube. So I'll do series of shows, and I did one of them for a company that I worked for. And it went very, very successfully.
Which one was it?
It was called, for them, it was called SourceFed D&D.
Oh, cool.
So I brought this like sort of D&D.
Not sauce fed, like saucy.
No, like source.
Yeah.
With an R that I don't say or pronounce.
I was thinking like, damn, sauce is cool.
Source fed. That's kind of when I started getting into digital media and content that way. But I love D&D. but it's very, very rule heavy, and usually sessions can last anywhere between like 2 to 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes 8. And so I kind of created a improv version that was condensed to 45 minutes.
Oh, that's very cool.
Loved it.
So it's like a digestible, easier.
It's sort of like your entry step into D&D.
Yeah.
Because the rule book is, yay thick. And
Is
it's
it?
just, it's a lot. And I remember when I first played it in 2012, I wanted to be this rogue. And my first move, he's like, right, there's hobgoblins. You've just been ambushed. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to run up this tree and backflip and then fire an arrow, and it's going to go through 3 of their heads. And he goes, the DM, which is the dungeon master who orchestrates the game, says, you can make it to the tree. And I was like, this is the most anticlimactic thing I've ever heard. You are squashing storytelling. You are just like limiting what I can do. So I basically...
I feel like that is what I sound like when I talk about NFTs to people who are...
Yes.
But that was great. But also I skipped most of your Dungeons and Dragons content when I was looking
Fair
at
enough.
stuff for you.
Yeah.
But now that I know that that's kind of a good entryway, I'm going to watch some of that.
You don't have to.
I mean, I'll watch a bit of it.
You really don't.
I would really like to.
Okay. It's totally your choice.
I'm
It's your
going
time.
to.
Yep.
Well, I've been hearing about this game nonstop. I really like niche cult cultures really interest me. Because if
so much out there.
If so many people can be obsessed with something to that like ferocity, you know what I mean? Like
there must be something pretty cool about it.
Yeah, there must be something to it.
Yeah.
So I love just diving in. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's really a cult, and we're going to end the world soon.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So I'd like to be, abreast on the situation.
That's what it sounds like when you talk about NFTs. Sorry.
Oh my God. Just wait till you hear me talk about the metaverse. Woo.
Oh my God, that's actually how, well, as long as I can get my dragon, I'll be fine.
Oh yeah, we'll get you a dragon.
I want a dragon.
Yeah, I'll get you a dragon for sure. So Geek Bomb started doing that kind of content.
Yes, and we monetized it in a way where it was like, a monthly subscription, and you'll be able to get access and input into how we do the show. And then we kind of
Where
just
did you guys
stayed
do
way.
that? What platform? Was it on your website?
The monetization?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it's through Patreon.
Through Patreon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which I really loved.
What year did you guys start doing that?
2017.
Oh, so that was early Patreon days then,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really liked, because it's like when you were, I think YouTubers used to get such slack and so much heat because it's like they were doing it all on their own. And I feel like, for me especially, having started in traditional media, television and radio, when someone hires you, it's someone bigger than you telling you you're good enough. But when you're trying to do it all on your own, you are likely working harder, funding the entire thing, hoping that it'll take off.
Yes, welcome to the Shanni Show.
And
exact description.
From an outside perspective looking in, it's never going to be seen on the same level because you're trying to do it on your own. There's something about an external validation, and I have it all the time. When I do something for me, it means nothing. When I get hired for a job, I feel like I have value.
You're like, oh, I got picked.
Yeah.
But don't you think then the value comes from the audiences? So if the engagement is good, you feel good?
It takes a lot to get there, but that is a big part of it. But I think that once Patreon sort of was a platform, and Patreon is a way for you to monetize the content that you put out there, I felt like it was a way for creators to be able to more sustainably do what they wanted to do. Where it's like, I've earned sort of like my ability to have a platform. This does cost money. Realistically, this is a lot, but if you do want to support my endeavors, you are able to do that.
Yeah.
There are pros and cons. I feel a little bit weird where it's like, you pay me and you'll get this. Yes, transactional, but they're paying for a piece of me in a way. We want to be a part of your community. We want your videos.
Yeah.
We want access to you. And it's like,
sort of ties back into the crazy infatuation with you type fans.
but the community that I have, every now and then there will be someone who,
That's a little bit crazy.
will figure out where my boundaries are and step right up to the line and stay there.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
I have some people like that with some of the DMs I get. Like they don't, it's not fully, but they're just right. And I'm just like, oh.
But they stay there.
Yeah, just stop
And it's
messaging
like,
me.
Approach from time to time.
Yeah.
But like when you set up camp at a boundary line, like that's a boundary in itself. Like, so I will always get sort of like the rogue one, like they'll write me poetry. It's a parasocial relationship. They think that they are involved in some sort of relationship with me. And so that's sort of like a reminder sort of to
Take a cool Yeah.
Yeah.
But your Geek Bomb community on Patreon seems pretty nice.
They're really good people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like them.
And I also feel like on Patreon, because they're buying in and because it's sort of private, it creates more of a community atmosphere. And
It
so
does.
It's
They're
a little
investing in something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the piece that I really, truly
and
recognize.
in each other almost, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look what we created.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of it.
There's like a team atmosphere almost.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And I really, really respect that process. Maybe I think for me, I really struggle sort of like with, I always give the example, I think I was 18 when I first started going clubbing. A guy would buy me a drink and I'd be like, oh, thank you. And then he goes, now can I get your number? And I'd be like, well, no. And he's like, well, why do you think I bought you the drink? And then smash it out of my hand.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And it was this thing where I was kind of taught, if someone gives you something, you have to give them something back. And I think that I struggle with that with Patreon a little bit. But our understanding is like there are perks and tiers of, if you pay this amount, you get this as the reward, as the perk. So it's like a mutually sort of beneficial arrangement, but there's just, I don't know, something I need to get over.
That's how I felt when I first started charging my worth. And I still am not completely there.
Yes.
But there's times when, you know, for example, I spend like $230 something on my facials, which last about 40 minutes.
I love your facial videos.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But I happily pay that. She's a genius. Right now, I haven't been able to see her. She's traveling. It's driving me crazy, which is why I have breakouts.
I need to get one.
But I happily pay that. But then when I turn around and want to charge, you know, a couple $100 for an hour or two of work, which is really intense, grueling work, I feel bad.
Yes.
And so I've really tried to put that into perspective. You know, I used to have a trainer. She was what? You know, 80, 120, whatever it was, 150. Like, people are out there charging what they're worth. And you just shouldn't feel bad.
Have the mentality of being a white guy when you negotiate.
Yes. Yeah, an old one too that's really grumpy and stubborn.
Yeah.
And wouldn't let Maude pay for his groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not homeless. Oh yeah, that includes. But I think that, I saw a tweet once where it's like, I one day hope to have the confidence of a mediocre white guy asking me to be a guest on their podcast. And I was like, that is so wonderful. But I would struggle with it as well. I think we really need to be talking a lot more. There's so many variables when it comes to it. Like, just because you're doing the same job doesn't mean you have the same level of experience. Someone could have like an inbuilt platform, which means they're taking care of like a marketing portion of it. So there's so many moving parts when it comes to it. But I think that just a base rate or an understanding of what you could be getting.
Yes, because people aren't discussing it enough. You know, I get offers. I mean, I turn down a lot of freelance work now just because I can't simply handle it. I would collapse and die, and I need sleep.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's times when people will have offered me, oh, but I could get someone to do it for this.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I've been in this field since I was 11 years old. Do you know what I mean? That's when I first started editing videos. So for someone to try and offer me the same rate as someone who's been editing videos for a year, I mean, it's absolutely outrageous.
I think the hardest lesson that people who hire in content creation need to understand is you get what you pay for.
Hell yes. I will do shitty work if you pay me less.
That's
that's what I can put together super fast.
But if you look at me and you balk at my rate and you're like, well, this person will do it for half of that. And I'm like, cool, get them. And they won't be on time and they won't do the research and you're not going to get the engagement. And it's a person that there's like so many parts of that. I remember being so angry last year, especially in the corporate world, because I feel like with the pandemic, the corporate world didn't get hit as bad. They just worked from home. Amazing. But looking at TikTok and a lot of the videos about sort of like trying to get a raise and like what a corporate sort of ladder looks like, I was just like, man, this is so shitty. I chose a creative career. There is no assistant host that moves up into an associate host that then becomes a senior host, and then an executive senior, and then a executive, like a senior VP host.
Yeah.
I don't go, I've been doing this for 14, 16 years, so this is my rate. People go, this is our budget. Take it or leave it.
Yes, this is our budget. Crazy.
And I'm like, how do I get it across? I feel like there's such a blanket, oh, you edit, this is our rate. No, but I'm a senior editor. Like yeah.
But I've been doing this for so long, and I'm actually good at it.
And I think the hardest part as well with that is I was looking into it and I've adapted it with my company a little bit, which is the charging by the hour. It's like, so people who are really, really good at their job and, you think it's a 4-hour job. And so you set aside the budget X amount over 4 hours. Let's just say it's $25 an hour. We put aside $100, so we'll offer $25 an hour thinking it'll be about 4 hours. A person takes that job and they're really fucking good at it. They get paid $25 because they're really good.
Because they got it done faster.
So you get punished
Yep.
the better you are.
Yep.
So that's why it needs to not be an hourly rate but like a set amount. And I think I remember like seeing this video that went viral which is like, would you rather pay a person that can get it done straight away? Or would you rather someone go through the whole process and it's like da-da-da and it takes 3 weeks but it's the same amount? And they're like, well, they look like they put in the work. It's like, no, they were gifted. They did the job faster. They saved your company 2.5, 3 weeks. Just because you feel like it's a lot of money for not as much work, they earned that skill set. I don't know. I get really
I feel the exact, I work for my dad and it took him about 3 years before he gave me a raise.
Right.
I still don't make what I deserve at all. But it's because some of the work that I do just seems so effortless. And I'm like, you don't even understand what I'm running here, how many different things I'm doing. There are entire production teams for whole shows, teams for one show. I am one for multiple shows.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just this crazy concept of what you're talking about, which is people who take longer, seeming like they're putting in more work.
Yeah.
But it's really the idea of working smarter, not harder.
Thank you.
But you need to work hard for literally decades before you can get to a point where you're working efficiently and working smarter.
Yes.
You know?
And I think that working smart it needs to be rewarded. Like it's what I strive for. And I see people working hard. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? You've just done 4 times the effort that you don't need to do.
Yeah.
But if it's an hourly rate, that's...
I tweeted out recently, I'm trying to be underworked and overpaid by 2023.
Wow.
That is my biggest goal. I want to be underworked and overpaid. That's my whole thing.
So I get asked a lot, because everyone's overworked and unpaid at the moment. I get asked a lot, what's your dream job? What's your dream job? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if it exists. I have a dream scenario, and that is work less, get paid more, and travel on someone else's dollar.
That is a great scenario. Wow, I wish some of the sugar daddies in my DMs would offer that sort of scenario.
They get a bit radio silent though once you start actually trying to get the transaction.
Once you're like, no, I'm not going to send back the money that you sent to me to a different account that you apparently is going to, come through. All of a sudden it's quiet. All right, so Geek Bomb, people definitely need to check it out. Super cool. I love what you guys do on there. I just think it's fun. And also your social media content is fun for anyone born in the 90s. It's very relatable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's lots of fun like 90s content and I think it's great. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is your mom is a psychologist.
Yeah, she is.
Now
she hates me talking about her.
Does she?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, this is going to be great then.
I won't shut up. She'll never listen to this because that's what she does. But I got into television. She's like, there's one rule. Don't mention me. And I was like, done. And then every single day I was like, my mom did that. I think she's so fascinating and wonderful.
Well, it's cool because I feel like your perspective is so it's wise, it's mature, it's very beyond Los Angeles. I will put it that way. That's one of the reasons why I gravitate so much to you. I always just adored you. You've always been so authentic.
I'm allergic to bullshit.
Yeah, you're just a real fucking human. And I mean, you've seen some of the circles we mingle with. Like, that's not necessarily the most common quality. So, I always really just felt like, oh, Maude's a cool one. You know what I mean? She just is a real person. And I feel like that must to some extent stem from having a really good foundation, because you cannot enter this industry with a poor foundation and come out on the other side okay. Yeah. So how do you feel like, talk about what it was like having a mom that's a psychologist and if that sort of set you up for different things.
So it's interesting. There is something that my mum taught me during my high school years. I went to a private all-girls school.
Did you?
Bunch of brats, yeah.
Was it like a religious school?
A Presbyterian. I didn't even know what Presbyterian was when I did it. And apparently I sat in the office and said to the principal, I love God. And I was like, shut up.
Me and God, we're one.
My parents raised me agnostic. Believe what you want to believe. We have no idea. I was
Love
like,
that.
okay. But I remember all these fights I would have with these girls. And I was like, oh, Kate's being such a bitch. And she would every single time ask me to learn about what I did in that exchange.
Interesting.
So,
self-responsibility almost.
Accountability.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, she's such a bitch. What did you do? I was like, what do you mean, what did I do? She did this, this, and this. What did you do? She's not doing that for no reason. Find out your role in this. And all through high school, I just remember begging her to be on my side once. And then what she's ended up doing to me, anytime there's an altercation, I learn and understand my role in it. What did I do? Well, how can I be responsible? What were my actions that caused this reaction? And I think that was a big part of sort of like being mature.
Yeah.
I got taught the hard way, but the quick way, what accountability was. But the hard part was my mum and I are very, very similar. We had those curtain rods when I'm talking about my childhood, and I had those.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you have curtains of all of your baby pictures?
Certainly did not. Did not. I think there's like 3 baby pictures of me in existence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Were you really tall as a baby too?
I'm short in my family.
Are you?
Yes.
I'm short in my,
yeah, you're short.
Well, I'm just short. I'm short
5'11".
in everyone's family.
In Australia, 5'11" wasn't that tall.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have been like, hello.
We were all just
everybody.
Giants. Yeah, never was an issue. Maybe once was like a guy who was like 5'10". I'd be like, oh,
How tall are your parents? How tall is your mom?
Oh, she's 5'9". Dad's 6'2". My brothers are 6'3" and 6'6".
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, 6'6".
Yeah.
It's a whole other universe.
Married
for
a
me.
woman 5'5". Oh. Yeah, she can't have any more children. Yeah. But with what my parents did, even though mum and I had the same personality, and I love that I'm becoming her more and more every day, she's got great characteristics.
Oh, I love that.
She hates being on camera. She hated any kind of spotlight. So when I started doing work that was in the spotlight, she didn't necessarily know how to support me.
Oh.
So that was a real trip.
That's kind of what we were talking about before, where it's hard to understand. We think that people think the same, so it's
Yes.
hard to put yourself in other people's shoes in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually really fascinating. But essentially what they taught you is how to not be entitled, right? That your behaviors have consequences
Yes.
and that you have power over your life. You're not a passive observer in your existence.
Yes, your actions have
Consequences?
That's it.
Real life consequences?
That's
Yeah.
it. And to be responsible for
Yeah.
your actions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. It's something that for sure not a lot of people in LA have. There's this kind of weird idea.
Entitlement.
Yeah, there's this entitlement that you should be able to do this or that, or you should have access to everyone you want, or like if you don't get a job, it's because like the other person, like, oh, you're too pretty, like you were just too pretty. You know what I mean? Like there's this weird sort of sense of entitlement just surrounding this city, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe this is me with a very biased eye because I have worked hard to get where I am. But sometimes it's like, so what are you doing to get the job? Well, I want it. But what are you doing to get the job? I mean, sometimes I'll show up. I did an acting class once, but I'm going to be a star. Why? Because I want it. I deserve it.
Enough.
I cannot stand the word deserve.
I agree, because to me, you deserve what you get.
You earn it.
But as in to say, like, you don't deserve anything other than literally what you have. Do you know
Everyone
what I mean?
deserves basic human rights. I get that.
Okay, sure, but I'm talking about more career stuff, obviously. Yeah.
You have to earn it.
Yeah.
You earn respect. You earn your worth. You earn the right to, you earn the experience. You don't deserve anything.
Yeah, I feel like because when I joined Clubhouse, something that Clubhouse definitely did for me was change my perspective on how far things are from where I am in terms of accessibility career-wise. So like I would go into these rooms with all these people who were just massive TikTok stars.
Right.
And I would talk to them, and it was really eye-opening to see that, first of all, nobody was like extraordinary. Everyone's just like a human being.
Yeah.
And that none of these people did anything different other than work harder and be more consistent.
Yep.
And not give up. And
sprinkle
not,
of luck.
Yeah, and
There is
yeah,
luck
sure,
in it.
sprinkle of luck for sure. But as in just not care either. And I always had a barrier of, okay, I'll put myself out there, but what's it even gonna do? It'll take years before anything even happens.
Yeah.
But if you have the mentality, you never start anything. And going onto Clubhouse and seeing you and like the junkets that you do, and just, I mean, you're in front of the biggest stars on this planet. And
They're just people.
Yeah, they're just people. But I'll never forget that video you posted of, so you want to be a host or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, you can be a host if you want to. You know, I didn't know that this was a career path. And I was watching that video thinking to myself, like, yeah, you can. And it's exactly what you're talking about now, which is what did you do to get the job? You have to go out and earn it. And so many people feel like these things are not in their reach, but they are if you work hard.
Yes.
And if you also work creatively.
Yeah, I didn't even know I could do it as a career option. I thought it was actor or bust. And I was like, I just wasn't connecting with acting. I was like, why am I putting so much effort to being someone else? And I was like, oh my God, the host, I just get to be me.
How did you learn about hosting as a career? When did you jump into that?
19, I auditioned for a show, a music network in Australia. And there's like a Australia-wide competition, and I was one of 4 that got into like the process. It was basically like a reality TV show. Yeah, I think they do like those the find a host competitions.
Yeah.
I was in one of those.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I didn't even get the job, but I finally realized that's what I wanted to do. I grew up in Brisbane, which is kind of like I don't know. Queensland is the Florida of Australia.
Great.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to go back to Brisbane. And ended up talking myself into a job opportunity.
And you moved to Sydney, right? From there?
Yeah.
And then from Sydney to LA?
Yeah.
Now, what made you move from Sydney to LA? Was it a job specifically or just the dream?
I got a job that brought me over here, but I also got my own visa.
Oh, how'd you do that?
So
that's impressive.
I still remember the catalyst of this. So I had done television and radio in Australia. I quit the radio job because it was so exploitative and gross. And I was like, I would rather do nothing than do that. And so I quit.
That was the very celebrity gossipy.
Yes. Okay. But it was also like oversharing personal stories and exploiting co-hosts and kind of like, if you had a boundary or if there was a no-go zone, they would share your secrets on air for the sake of good content. God. And they'd be like, show us your phone book. We're going to contact everyone in it, ex-boyfriends, celebrities, everything.
Oh, my God.
It was awful.
It's like the radio version of Unreal.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, it was awful. And I think you just have to be born to want to do radio. And I wasn't. But I still remember being unemployed, and I was invited to sit front row at Fashion Week.
Oh, cool. Which one? New York?
In Sydney.
Oh.
Sydney Fashion Week in Australia.
Still so cool.
And I remember like, clapping and watching all the models go down. And I'm here going, I don't give a shit about fashion. I don't give a shit about this. I'm unemployed. And yet I'm in the front row. Is there no one else? And it just dawned on me, Australia was so small. It was so small. And because I'd already done television and radio, I'd kind of like done the majority of things. And there was such a gap in the kind of things that I could host. It would kind of cap you at like 25 and under. And then the next rung was 40 and over.
Oh, so like there was morning show, making muffins and shit?
Yeah, yes, and I was getting asked to audition for those at 26.
Yeah, no.
And they're like, read the prompter for the next part. And I'm like, a change in baby formula has occurred. And I was like, and they go, we just didn't really feel like you believed it. And I went, I'm fucking 26.
Like, you're right. I don't believe it.
I shouldn't be doing that. So I moved to LA and I became their entertainment correspondent. And I was like, that's better.
Oh, okay.
But there's just such a dead market from 25 to 40.
Wait, but how did you get the visa?
So I started going to, I was watching G4.
Okay, what's G4?
G4 was a channel where it was basically like geek culture, video games.
Oh, cool.
Olivia Munn got her start on it.
Oh, that's right. She's huge in the gaming world.
Was.
The geek world and that whole space.
So that's how she got her start.
Okay.
And I remember watching this going, oh my God, I get to not only be a host, which is what I love, but I get to talk about the shit that I love. Because the reason why I started Geek Bomb was because my agent said, if you talk about Star Wars publicly one more time, you will not work in this country again. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it under Geek Bomb.
Fast forward 10 years and now geek culture is massive.
Huge. And I flew over, got a meeting with G4. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Fantastic.
Came back to Australia, started my visa process, ended up getting approved the whole thing because I'd done enough in Australia hosting network television.
To qualify as, that's your field.
I got my photo in the paper at the events doing the hand on the hip thing. Enough of those, they think you're famous and you get the visa. And so I was on a job and I told them that I'd gotten my own visa and they were like, interesting.
Oh, do you think that really helped? Because they didn't have to sort of do the whole visa thing to bring you over.
And it planted the seed where there was already a radio show happening in LA called The Hot Hits Live from LA. And they had a very renowned Australian host over here doing it. And he'd been doing it for about 5 years. And they wanted someone younger. And I literally just talked myself into that job.
And that was with G4?
Not G4.
With a different one?
G4's back now. It's changed a lot since it was on there. But basically, it showed me that I could...
That it was accessible, that you could just do these
I could talk about
things.
something that's not baby formula.
Yeah.
That I could talk about the shit that I actually loved and specialized in. And the amount of work that I get over here is huge. I remember I recently spoke to my Australian agent again because I was like, during the pandemic, God, do I come home? What do I do? And she said, Maude, the problem with you is that you specialize in entertainment. I said, I know. We got social media, digital content, TV, film, video games, celebrity, interviews. It's huge. And she goes, it's too niche. It's far too niche.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Entertainment
How's that niche?
is too niche
That's hilarious.
in Australia. And I was like, I don't think I'm coming home.
Like, not even gaming is too
No.
niche here. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you can specialize in a single program.
Yes.
You can specialize in Doctor Who.
You can specialize in a character in a game.
Yes. So the fact that the entire entertainment, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But that's what it's like back in Australia.
So that's essentially why you moved here.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like you have an advantage because you are a beautiful woman getting these jobs?
I don't see myself as a beautiful woman.
Okay, but you're obviously hot.
I take pride in my personality.
Have you looked at some of your photo shoots? I mean, yes, you should take pride in your personality,
Yeah.
but you're also very attractive.
I wasn't raised pretty. I was there. If I could burn,
Oh, I know what you mean. I also wasn't really raised pretty.
if I could burn every single photo from 8 till 15, I would take a light, I would.
Oh, I love my ugly face. You don't like your ugly face?
Mine's pretty fucking ugly.
Mine's fucking bad, dude. I was like 180 pounds, very round. My clothes was bad. Everything was, not that I've really improved my sense of style, but as in, I was bad.
My teeth looked like they had a fight and they were trying to run away from each other.
I had braces for like
I got
5.5 years. It was brutal. And I had transition lenses. Shit was hilarious.
But I think that
We should do a side by side of our faces.
I've got one. No, it's like if I've eaten, I will. But I think that builds so much character, and I'm
really
so
does.
grateful because I think that's a big part of LA. LA is when like the most popular girl and boy from every high school comes here to make it, right?
So true.
Their entire identity is their looks and their physical features.
But it is really true.
So when they have to actually have a conversation and get a little deep.
I've had some of those conversations.
Shanni,
Yep, bro.
I like dating pretty boys. And I would say...
Same, I like hot guys too, but it's fucking miserable out there.
God.
Like, my God.
I would say to them, I was like, oh, my neck. And they're like, what? What's going on? I was like, oh no, I'm sick of watching my jokes fly over your head. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, it's happened again. Ow.
Oh, it's happening again.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain. Like,
My back from carrying this conversation. Miserable.
Yeah.
I was just hooking up with a guy that said espresso.
No.
And he
Deal breaker?
thought almond milk was dairy and peanut butter was dairy. Maude, I swear to God.
Are you milking the nut? Wait, don't answer that. Don't ask him that.
I swear to God, I was like, is this what it's come to? Is this what the
So
world
pretty.
has? But you're so hot. Why is your body like that?
Because they didn't have to work on it.
Yeah, they really
They
didn't.
never had to think. So I in Australia, I would go up all these auditions for television. It would be me and every Miss Australia from like 1999 to 2005, you know? And I'm like, and I would get the job.
But I think that's also why you do so well on the junkets and why probably I'm assuming a lot of people that you work with like you is because you do have characters. So you're shutting them down when they're playing games with you in the interviews. You know, you're telling him smells like, shit. Your breath smells like shit, right? Like those kind of moments, those take cojones. They take a personality, they take passion and just more to you, right?
Yeah.
A little sauce, a little spice.
Yeah.
Not just a face.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like that probably really lends itself well to your career, especially as a host.
Any kind of parenting advice that I could give, I think the best thing that my parents ever did, given I wasn't a good looking kid, but they...
I need to see photos.
Oh my God, I will show you one. I will show you one. I will. I don't want anyone to see this. Like the light of day.
It's just so good.
It's going to take me a while to scroll through it all, of course.
We can do it after.
I've got it ready to go, I swear.
Oh, yeah, thank God.
Are you going to have to edit? Oh, no.
No, it's fine. I barely edit stuff out anyways. People will just have to listen to us jibber-jabbering.
Okay.
My favorite part of the podcast.
So just picture what you think I would look like.
Yeah, picture. Okay. So let me paint a picture verbally before you even show me. So I'm assuming tall and lanky.
Oh, don't tell me I didn't. I thought I added it to favorites.
String bean type phalange arms and legs. Were you off balance a lot as a kid?
Yeah.
Yes. I imagine you.
Okay.
Tall people are really off balance. You know, because I was really short. I was very balanced. I was short and thick.
Got it.
So I was like, you couldn't knock me over if you tried.
Yeah,
I was
no,
like
no.
a
I would
linebacker.
Sneeze and I'd fly.
Yeah.
I can't find it. I'm so sorry. What an anticlimax, but I will show
It's fine. At some point, you'll show it to me.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so last couple of things before we wrap up. What is tall poppy syndrome?
Oh, actually, we can really tie this back into Australia. I don't miss it at all. Tall poppy syndrome is something that kind of originated, like all things in Australia, originated in Britain. And a poppy is a flower. And they're a single kind of like stemmed flower.
They're the ones that you blow like, and then
that's
it goes.
that's a daffodil.
That's dandelion. That's right.
I was like,
sorry.
that's a daffodil. No, it's not, Maude.
No, poppy is what becomes the drugs.
Yes, it's the opioid. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
So in the field of poppies, they are usually consistently around the same length, but if one gets a lot of sunshine, it will shoot up. So if you are a tall poppy, the tall poppy syndrome is that it's everyone else's job to cut you back down.
Ooh.
So if you have any success in Australia, you have a target painted on your back.
Oh, that's miserable.
Awful.
Oh my God, what a horrible.
So competitive, so nasty.
Oh, that's like exactly me and Leo. So I recorded with her on Friday. We were just talking about like this sort of scarcity mentality. That's almost exactly what that is.
Yes, but I mean, if entertainment as a genre is too niche, then scarcity is real. And there's only about 7 jobs as a host as a woman in Australia. And so if you have one of them, people are out for your blood. They cannot be happy for you. A great example is even one of my best friends back home, when I was trying to get the hands on the hips photos in the paper at events to build up my case for my visa, if she would open the paper and my face would be there, she'd be like, oh, looking a bit desperate.
Oh,
would say something to neg me, to bring me back down a little bit. And the whole point of it is we don't want anyone's head to get a bit too big. We don't want anyone to kind of get too big for their britches kind of things,
No one to have too big of an ego.
That's it.
They're screwed with me.
If you get fame or if you get success, it's everyone else's job just to kind of,
bring you back down to reality. Right.
Yes.
Back down to earth, keep you grounded.
And what it ends up doing is just being a minefield of negative and unsupportiveness with competitiveness and awful. In Australia, I miss the place. I barely miss the people.
God, it sounds like hell on earth for me. That sounds horrible because I'm so the opposite of that. I just can't stand... Like,
I know,
I want to
that's
have a
why
fucking party for everyone's wins.
That's why my eyes glisten when you are always so supportive, because I've just spent my entire adult life basically, in my career, not having that.
Your teens. Happy 25th.
Yes, sorry, that's exactly right. Yes, you're right. But it's
that's so hard.
And we don't sell ourselves in a very positive way when it's like, so tell me some of the great things you've done. Shut down, cannot do that. Cannot talk about myself in a positive way, can't champion myself. You're just not allowed to do that.
So how long did it take to build out of that mentality when you got to LA? Did you always feel separated from that mentality in Australia? Do you know what I mean? And so when you came here, it kind of felt like a more natural fit, or was it something you had to work out of?
I mean, I was the one with the target on their back, so I was pulling knives out of my back all day. So I only got to see sort of that experience and that side of it.
Got it.
I remember when I wanted to quit the first job at Nickelodeon, a friend of mine who had next to no experience as a host said, "Can I have your job?" I'm like, that's not how it works. It's not passing a baton to someone. Like, there's a whole process behind this. But my only kind of way to cope with it is just to keep working.
Yeah.
And so it fueled me to
keep succeeding.
Yep. And be like, you know what, you can hate me and want to bring me down all you like, but I'm still gonna, like, I was one of the few working people. And that was like kind of the only revenge that I could have, is just try and be more successful. And then I left. But I will say LA gets a lot of slack for when you cut slack. It's like when you get a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an Australianism. I can't remember anymore.
It might be at this point. Yeah. I have so many friends from everywhere. I never know where the fuck the slang comes from.
Good.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, oh, LA is so fake. It's so awful. Everyone's like just trying to, oh, yes, I want to get lunch. Oh my God, you're going to be great. Everyone blows smoke up your ass. And I was like, great. I love that. I would rather someone be so fake to me, wanting me to succeed, than be super, super bitchy and want to bring me back down. And I was explaining the difference. So in Australia, no one wins. In America, yes, people want to ride your coattails up, but at the end of the day, everyone's up.
Yeah.
Like, if you're bringing other people up with you, even if they don't deserve it or earn it or whatever, but the end goal is everyone succeeds. You know, oh, I'm going to cash in on a favor. Yeah, because you helped, and so you get help. Win, win, win.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, I won't reveal my sources. No, I won't help you with this. No, I won't give you a contact for an accountant. It's like everyone fends for themselves.
Where, in Australia?
In Australia, no one wins. So, I mean, I know that some people don't find LA to be incredibly ideal. It's so much better than what it was in Australia.
You've given me such a new level of appreciation for LA, actually.
And it's up to you whether you want to buy into the bullshit, whether you want to believe the fakeness. If you can sort of, I think bullshit and being fake is a language. You can either understand it or you can't. But if someone's doing that to me, I get to be like, you're full of it?
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah, sure. Wide berth. But it's how you navigate it. But yeah, I see the positive of it.
Yeah, I love how you like just live. You're very independent. You live your life very independently. I think that's great. I think it's probably the best way to live in LA and not be beholden to certain people or certain groups.
I'm not a pack person.
I'm never really that kind. You know, if I can do something and someone invites me, I'll go. But if I'm dying or exhausted or what, I'm not gonna. I don't like having, and I also don't like having people have pressure placed on me from them where they like expect me to do things or expect certain things from me. I don't want anyone expecting nothing from me.
I like to call it the low maintenance friend. And I attract low maintenance people.
Yes.
And I notice that as soon as, you know, we all have our emotional bank where if someone keeps taking withdrawals from me and I've got nothing left, but they keep wanting to take, it's like, ooh, you're out.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that friendship with expectations,
it's like, oh my God.
For like no reason.
Yeah, for no reason at all. Like I just can't, it's just beyond me. But anyways, I'm so happy you came on today. I feel like this is a perfect spot. We went for 2 hours. This was such a great convo.
Thank you.
I think I had 30 other things on my note list that I didn't even discuss, but I was just having so much fun with all of this.
I could talk forever.
Yeah. No, it was a really important conversation. I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily have these conversations with friends as much as is needed, especially about the mental health stuff and just like coping in our industry. And so I loved it. I loved hearing your perspective, and I just love you as a person. I'm so happy for just everything that you do in life, and also for the recognition that you get, because, you know, I know you're talking about the hate, but I see so many positive comments. People really appreciate your work, and I love your passion for all things, everything. I love people with varied interests and with intense varied interests. I feel like it makes someone so much more interesting, you know, instead of just people going along with the same old stuff that's happening now. Like, you really care about what it is that you care about. And I think that's really cool.
You know what I like about you? You are exactly who you are. Aww. You are not trying to be anyone for anyone else. You're not trying to, there's no fakeness with you. You are 100%, and this is a rare thing. You are 100% exactly who you want to be. And I think that's fantastic.
God, I'm like, I might cry actually, because that's so true. I always say, you know, people are so consumed with finding themselves. Yeah. And I think that we need to stop finding ourselves and start being ourselves. It's not a passive activity. You can choose who you want to be, and you can go and be that person.
Okay. I know we're trying to wrap things up.
I mean, we don't necessarily have to, but yeah.
Because I've got this one big breakthrough. I think you were talking earlier about like when was a moment in your career that you knew whatever it was. I remember when I first got my job in Nickelodeon, I was 19 and the weight of what high school was, trying to conform, having everything controlled for me, having those cliques, the mean girls, all of that. I would have such violent anxiety from what I was going to wear to a party. Like all of that stuff that shouldn't matter really, really mattered. And I never thought I would be good enough for anything. And then as soon as I got that job, it just went away. And I remember talking to a friend going, when was your moment? When was it that all that little stuff that you just stopped caring what people thought of you, when you just accepted who you were so wholly, where you just loved who you were and that you could 100% be you and it didn't matter what anyone thought. When did that happen for you? And they were like, it still hasn't.
Oh, no way.
They're like, that's not a thing that everyone gets.
God, that's really
and
sad.
That's what I get from you.
Aww.
And so what was that moment for you?
Yeah.
When did it just stop matter? Like the outside, the external noise, feeling the pressure, feeling the expectations. You know how like you would want to change and alter yourself to try and fit in?
Yeah.
When did that just stop?
So it's actually a really specific moment.
Yeah.
And I was at Wilderness. I got sent away when I was a kid to like multiple programs and #Breaking Code Silence. I'm very much a part of that. And one of the programs I went to was a Wilderness program. And I got really lucky because this Wilderness was not like other Wildernesses. It was actually, we got a shower once a week, which is really rare at Wilderness.
Oh.
Yes, that was quite the luxury.
How long were you gone for?
I was at Wilderness for 3 months. Then I went to therapeutic boarding school after that for a couple years. But
How
before,
old were you?
Before that, I've been sent away since I was like 11. Various programs, residential treatment centers, like everything under the sun.
Whoa.
I went to a fat kid boarding school actually for like 3 months. Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, I did. I had a lot of troubles as a child.
Right.
But I think my childhood just made me who I am. And I'll never forget this moment when I was 13 at Wilderness. And at Wilderness, we would go on 13-mile canoe trips a day, 9-mile hikes. Like that was, you'd move from one campsite to the next. That was the whole thing. And at any moment in the day, you were allowed to call a group. A group is just like a group therapy session, but you could call it for anything. And so you have to imagine, 11 to 15-year-old girls obviously are incredibly hormonal, one, and they just got sent away from their families. So they're very, behavior was just not on lock, right? Yeah. Like everything was sort of crazy. Emotions were haywire. Some of them were even going through withdrawals from drugs. Like this was it was very intense. And so people called groups all the time. And there was one day we were canoeing against the current. And this one canoe, the two girls on it, me and my friend, we had a great time. I remember her name was Carly, loved her, best friend, found her like about a year ago on Facebook.
Cool.
Couldn't believe I finally found her.
Facebook does.
Yeah. And the other canoe, they kept calling groups because they were getting so frustrated with each other. Against the current, everyone's frustrated. And at one point, I don't remember what the group was about, but the counselors and the campers, we disagreed with each other. Now, as a 13-year-old, you're sitting there thinking, okay, I can agree with the campers because that's, my tribe. I'm supposed to, whatever. And it also led to the bigger picture of I could hate that I'm here because I got sent away, because, in theory, I'm supposed to hate it here. It's in the woods. I'm from Beverly Hills. How could I like it here? All of these things that felt like external things that I should be, right? This idea of should, like we were talking about before. But deep down, I fucking loved it. I loved being in the woods. I didn't have a mirror. I didn't look at myself forever. My eyebrow was my whole forehead. Like I just had no care. We would canoe somewhere. I was good at it. I was so good at building tents and fucking putting up tarps and building fires with nothing. Like I was just really good at everything in Wilderness. I loved it. I really did. And I'll never forget that one group session. The counselors were disagreeing. I forgot what it even was, but I took the counselor's side. I was kind of a leader within the girls at that point. I think I'd been there for maybe a month. And, I have a loud voice. So obviously that just sort of happens naturally everywhere. And when I agreed with the counselors and the other girls disagreed, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is a moment. You can either say what you really feel, which is agreeing with the counselors, or you can appease the people who you're supposed to appease. And I said what I really felt. I agreed with the counselors. And the other girls, instead of being mad at me, they were like, well, if Shanni sees it that way, like I kind of see your point then. And I became sort of a mediator. And it was, that's always been a very big skill of mine, is mediating between two hectic parties.
You saw your influence.
Yeah. And I felt I just felt in that moment that I was really powerful, that I felt like, you know, I can choose to be happy anywhere. And that's when everything dissipated.
Yeah.
And all of the feelings that I thought I should have no longer became the feelings that I actually had. And it was just really what I fucking felt was what I was going to express. I wasn't going to say that I knew a band if I didn't know them. I was going to wear what I wanted to wear. I was going to say what I wanted to say. I was going to feel what I wanted to feel. And I was going to put out authentically what Shanni actually is, regardless of what people out there, if I wanted to go and start screaming and dancing in the middle of somewhere, I was going to fucking do that. I vowed to just do what authentically felt me and to work as hard as I possibly could to get over this sort of like lying thing that I always had to feel cool.
Yeah.
Because I just knew deep down that if I was 100% myself, people would really love it because
that's the coolest thing about
it. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's just been this whole journey from then until literally now, always sort of, you know, people say like people are unfiltered, that's authentic, whatever. To me, it's not. It's filtering your authenticity, if that makes sense. Like the filter is authenticity. So instead of just saying your first thing, think, oh, do I actually think that?
Yeah.
Or, you know, am I just saying that because I feel like I'm supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Or am I saying that because I feel like I want that person to like me? You know, your filter is authenticity. And a lot of times people think their gut reaction is their truest self, but that's not really the case. So it's been a crazy journey, but it's such a fascinating question that you asked because a lot of people, I don't know if they've had those moments yet.
No. And I think they look for validation. They look for answers. They look to be guided a little bit more. And I think, that's what I immediately noticed about you. We were hanging out in a group situation and I could just tell that you did not need an awareness of what was happening with sort of like the pack mentality. You were so busy just doing your thing. I remember being like, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Something that you would do that wasn't sort of like inherently cool. I think you were like, my rainbow socks with, toes in it, whatever it was. Yeah. And everyone else is like kind of dripping in sort of really expensive handbags. And I was like, that is out of everyone and everything here, the coolest thing.
Aww.
And I think that there is so much power and almost currency in knowing exactly who you are and not trying to conform, not trying to please other people, not trying to fit into this who you should be kind of spectrum. When you just fly by the wavelength of your own sort of like authenticity, that's something that I really connected with you about. The problem is, especially when you're 5'11", a friend finally aptly explained to me, because I was really bummed out that I was called intimidating.
Oh,
Maude,
yes.
you're very intimidating.
I always say if I was taller, I don't know if it would suit well with my personality.
I'm intimidating. And the intimidation is knowing exactly who I am, liking who I am and accepting who I am and not trying to change or needing validation. And a friend told me, when you are like that, you literally take all worth away from another person because you are indirectly telling them you don't need them.
Interesting.
You're in a position where you get to want them. And that is the most intimidating thing out there. Because when a person has a level of desperateness or that need for validation, it becomes a need. And you give purpose and worth to another person because of your need to fit in. You don't give them that. That is intimidating. Yeah. Yep. They're like, you don't need me. And I'm like, yeah, I get to choose whether I have you or not, whether I want you or not. And that is fucking scary for that person.
It is a powerful currency.
Yeah.
It is.
I did not realize that. I was like, is it because I'm tall and my shoulders are back when I'm there? And no, it's because I don't give a shit about what anyone in that room thinks of me.
Yeah.
And that is intimidating.
But it's also, the idea of your perception is your reality. So what comes out of what you see is literally your whole world. So not only is there a powerful currency, sure, within the dynamic of others, but it also kind of gives you this sort of sense of, like, your world is so great. You know what I mean? Like, in your mind, everything is just happy go. There's always a party in my head.
Yeah. I mean,
like, even when I'm sad, there's like a sad party in my head. I don't know how to explain it. It's because I kind of have
it's a celebration no matter what.
Goggles on. I don't know. I know people, whenever I see friends that are sad, I'm always just like, don't be sad. Like, why? Don't even think about that. You know, it's not even.
So this is when we have a self-acceptance. I mean, I talk to girlfriends that, you know, I'll explain a situation. Weren't you worried about this? Weren't you panicking about that? And I'm like getting a glimpse of what it's like in their head. And when they haven't had, I'm going to call it the breakthrough moment that you and I have experienced, it really got me thinking how much capacity of them having to struggle with not feeling accepted do I not have to deal with? So what kind of capacity is taking up in their mind every waking second? I'm talking social anxiety. I'm talking actual anxiety. I'm talking a level of paranoia. I'm talking of, I mean, I think depression's a little bit different, but I think that's a very anxious state of mind to be wondering and worrying about what other people are thinking. That in essence is anxiety. And so what a luxury to have that cluster, that portion of thought not existing in my brain.
It is really a luxury.
That's why you got room to party.
It's so true. You know, I just agree with everything that you're saying. I feel like people need those moments.
How do you
how do you get those moments though?
In a way, someone who means or that you respect the most told you that you were good enough. And I think that's not enough.
I think you need the proof that being yourself will work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't know I could be a TV host. And then at 19, I got my first job in television for a network. This established place told me that I was good enough.
And also you being you was what was like, your authenticity got that validation. I think it can come from anyone, whether it's from whatever it is. I feel like that might be what people need to just see that it almost like a proof of concept, you know, a proof of concept for your authentic self. Once you have that proof of concept, you feel so much more comfortable being that way.
When you are rewarded for being unabashedly yourself.
God, it's so funny because I always say this. Well, it's not funny. It's interesting. I always say this, you know, when you're working to improve yourself, because self-improvement is something that I just hold so near and dear to my heart.
It's one of my core values.
Exactly. And when you're working to improve yourself, you know, a lot of the work is so hard to do, obviously, right? Yeah. These are not easy things. But the more you do it and the more you see positive results from it, then you become obsessed with self-improvement.
Yeah.
Because you see how it works. You get the proof of concept. So it's kind of the same sort of concept, right? And it's just, I mean, it all really ties together.
Do you know where I'm at with my self-improvement?
Yeah.
I'm in therapy.
Fantastic.
And my therapist is like, so a couple of years ago, you do realize that you hurt this person. How does that make you feel? I'm like, excited. Why? Why are you excited? You hurt someone. She's trying to get me to invoke emotion.
To feel the feelings.
Yeah. Because being online, I've shut down sort of a lot of feelings. But
gamer mode.
Yeah. Well, it's not good stuff, so I just filter it all out. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm really excited. She goes, why? And I said, because now I know what it is that I did to hurt that person. It's a lesson that I've learned, and I'm excited to be able to put it in and enact it in my day-to-day life.
It's your fuel. Mistakes that we make are the fuel that we need to no longer make those same mistakes in the future.
And that is exciting.
It is. It really is. I did this on a solo live episode years ago. I spoke about this where it's like fucking up can be so exciting because the more you make that mistake, the more fuel you have to never make it in the future. So even if you go forward and you make it again, okay, you have to forgive yourself because now that mistake that you're making is going to add, no, we're not.
I don't like that.
You don't like that?
My thing is the dumbest thing you can do is make the same mistake twice.
Well, it's not about necessarily like, for example, if you're trying to improve in behavior, you're not always, so it's less about like real life, you know, very like situational mistakes.
2 + 2 is 4.
Exactly.
5, 7.
I argue with that idea where it becomes insanity if you start making the same mistakes. For sure, agree with that.
And expecting a different result.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think more of what I mean is when you're just improving yourself behavior-wise, because those are they're almost like habits. They're a lot harder to break. So if you don't necessarily, you know, if you don't succeed every single time, then
you're getting closer though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you consider that fuel, and also, you know, you improve each time. So even if you don't break the mistake, maybe you're super aware of it. Maybe you were aware of it even before it happened, but you know, the muscle memory still lets you to do it. But it's just a really it's a very interesting conversation. It's so important that people have self-awareness to be able to know where they want to go and how to sort of work towards getting there.
And to not be afraid to fail.
Yeah, fall flat on your face.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are really afraid of. It's like the consequence of making the mistake. And it's like, if you can do it with grace, if you hurt people, obviously own it. If you've got a mum who's forced you to look at that perspective your entire life. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I think that this is a growth mindset thing though. It's like constantly wanting to know how I could be better.
Yeah. What do you anything you're currently working on that stands out to you?
Slowing down. I think this is because I do interview and I have 5 minutes to read someone. So I will read a person and have my assumptions and fill in the blanks. But if I actually really truly want to get to know that person, they have to show me who they are instead of me filling in the blanks.
Right. You're using your tactics for interviews in real life.
Yeah.
Slowing down is an important one for me. I try and talk slower.
Oh, yeah.
It helps when I smoke weed, but it still doesn't always fucking work. Like, it doesn't. Yeah, the later someone is to my podcast, by the way, the higher I'm going to get. I should put out a disclaimer. So it's like.
Well, you start really low and then you get higher.
No. As in, the more time I have to smoke. Yeah, the more time I have to smoke.
Oh my God, you can tell I'm so not a pot girl. What do you call it?
funny.
A pot girl? What? Like,
Pot, yeah. Oh, you can be a pot girl. Yeah.
the weed. Like,
So the marijuana. How does that work?
that's just, I wish it was more my thing. It's just, I had a bad experience once. And,
You want like a bad high?
Well, it wasn't even that. My memory would just keep going.
What do you mean?
Well, I remember the first time I stacked it, I fell over and I landed on the ground on all fours and then forgot where I was and then came to and I was like, how did I get here?
Oh, you had a whitey.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's what the Brits call it, whiting.
Oh.
When you
white out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah,
I
it just
don't know
sort
if
of
we went to whitey. Yeah, but
get a little crazy.
But then it also happened when I was at a party and I was telling, no, I actually don't know. There was people all around me.
Okay.
People all around me in a semicircle, all looking at me with anticipation, nodding along. And I'm like, you know how it's like those dreams where you're like, am I naked? Why are they all
why is
staring
everyone
at me?
looking at me?
And I went, what? And one of them goes, you're halfway through a story. I was like, no. No, I don't.
Oh, so by your memory gone, you meant like you couldn't remember anything.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Wow.
Like I was like a goldfish. It was like every few minutes I was like, nah, what? How? Okay. I just didn't like that. That felt dangerous to me.
Yeah. Maybe not for you. Listen, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I have some friends who really can't handle it, but slowing down, I wish I could. I'm working on it more. Slowing down while I speak is important.
Does your voice get higher? Oh my God.
That is, thank you for that soundbite. I will be using that for all of eternity. Oh my God.
Naive.
That's fucking hilarious. Does your voice get higher?
What else could it be? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Honestly, sometimes my voice does get higher, squeaks a little, and I'm like,
You don't have to make me feel better. That's very sweet though.
Oh my God, that was great. Well, that's how I am with gaming. So while you're talking about Dungeons and Dragons with the tree and the arrow and the this and the that, I mean,
talk to me about sepia.
Do the
and
dragons get higher?
Stevie nuts. What are they?
I don't.
Stevia.
Stevie. Don't know.
There's the upper and the downer.
Sativa.
Sativa. Stevia is sugar.
Shut the fuck up. I thought you were talking about more Dungeons and Dragons things. I'm like, they have a sugar replacement in that game? That's fantastic.
Oh, God.
Wow. So yeah, sativa and indica. Sativas are the ups, indicas are the downs.
Yeah.
Hybrids are a nice in between. A nice little a melange, a blend.
Which one makes your mouth dry instantly?
All of them. I have, you know how old people get like the things on the side? No, I get that all the time. But I get that even when I'm sober.
Right.
It's really fucking annoying. I can't, for someone whose entire life is revolved around talking, like to have these sort of talking things happen.
But talking a lot, that's why we have to have the water and the sip. It takes a lot of.
Yeah, you need to. And also coffee's not great but I just love coffee.
So do I.
You know, if you're doing
Good coffee.
If you have weird mouth things, you should eat an apple before a podcast.
Oh.
Cleans out your mouth, really great for the
Apples.
like your saliva and everything.
Today I learned.
Yeah. Today we learned. All right, Maude, I think let's wrap up. But this was so great.
You're going to put out 2 hours.
Yeah.
Your episode's 2 hours long.
Yeah. My 2 hours 20 actually is what we recorded to. Yeah,
That's
crazy.
a full day of work.
they're so good. Listen, people can pick and choose, what parts of the episode they want to listen to, but I feel like they're so fascinating. I love long conversations. I'm a big, as a consumer, I'm a fan of long podcasts. I always get annoyed when they're a nice tight hour because it just feels so planned and you have to go through the topics. You can't really get deep on multiple topics. You can go deep on one, but people don't do that.
Yeah.
They do they cover everything sort of shallowly over an hour.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I hope someone learned something today.
Yeah, well, I think that they did.
Yeah.
All right, where can people find you? Tell us about Geek Bomb and also your personal pages.
Yes, I am Maude Garrett on all social media. If you want to,
That's 2 R's, 2 T's, people.
2 R's, 2 T's. My old roommates made up a song about Garrett. Garrett. That is how you spell Garrett. They're Australian as well.
Really great song.
Thank
Wow,
you,
they should
thank
go
you.
into music.
They are professional
Shall we
musicians.
Yes, excellent. Excellent.
Not an indication of their skill. And Geek Bomb, if you want to check out the website, it's geekbomb.net. It's at Geek Bomb on all social medias as well. If you're looking to get your fix of nerd culture news, we got you on the daily. And we do quizzes on the website. Like, what Peacemaker character are you? Do you know what Peacemaker is?
No.
Good Lord.
But I could be a peacemaker.
Yes, you
Yes, I can.
Yes, you could.
Hello.
Oh, no.
Please, I'm making peace.
She's trying to do a peace symbol.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, this way.
Oh, I thought you meant the round one.
Oh, no, I was just trying to be my people.
Yeah, it's John Cena. He's a DC character who kills people for the sake of peace.
The celebrities in gaming, oh God, we could talk for so many more things, but celebrities in gaming, that'd be our next one, because I didn't know that celebrities are actually in games, as characters.
Yes.
It's a fucking thing. What the fuck?
Yeah, they're acting.
Yeah, they're in the games.
Yeah.
I always thought all the game characters were just fake characters. Anyways, so we have a lot to learn over here. I highly recommend
worlds,
checking out Geek Bomb, you guys. It's great. And you also do Twitch. Is it also Maude Garrett on Twitch?
It's Geek Bomb.
Geek Bomb on Twitch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, love.